30 seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
From the place yet not overly ostentatious studios of the Infinity Sports Network here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor of 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on into, I guess, a football Friday without the football, even though we'll talk a lot of football right here on the Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast, across all the great local Infinity Sports Network affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 375, the free Odyssey app, and as always, streaming on YouTube. 855-212-4227 is the number to lock on in and jump in with us. 855-212-4227. You could always get at me on Instagram, where I'm straight flexing, or via the good old cesspool of Twitter, at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. I want to get into my top 5 quarterback rankings in just a second, but we have the mayhem and the chaos that's going on right now in Philadelphia as the Eagles are celebrating their second ever Super Bowl championship. And the parade, and I see the images of it, is just absolutely raucous right now. I saw one video of Nolan Smith, who he was so drunk that he went over, right? And someone's like, oh, can you take a picture, I guess, with my daughter? And the daughter is like, I don't know, 4 or 5. So he puts the daughter on his shoulders, and they take the photo, and he walks away, and he's like half a block down away from where he took the photo, and the kid's still on his shoulders, which is just absolutely crazy. Quinyon Mitchell, I think he's in the lead right now for being the most turned at this victory parade and at this celebration. And then also Cam Jurgens, he has a beef jerky company that he's made, and he's throwing out beef jerky to people. So those are some of the craziest things I've seen. Saquon Barkley, his best move of the season, which is saying a lot because he's had many great moves this season. I guess the ball boy, at Lincoln Financial Field, so he doesn't always travel with the team, but he's the Eagles ball boy. He wasn't invited to the parade, or I guess didn't have access to the parade. So Saquon Barkley is high-fiving fans. And as he's high-fiving fans, he does a double take, and he goes, wait, it's the ball boy. And Saquon Barkley goes, do you not have access to the parade? And he goes, nope. He picks up the ball boy, and he goes, you're going to go through the parade route with the rest of us. Can Saquon Barkley do anything wrong these days? I don't think so. So some pretty cool things right now, and they just started the speeches right at the Art Museum on the Rocky Step. So if anything crazy comes from that, we will air it for you coming up later on in the show. I have to ask something, though, because, Stu, I know you don't have any children. Mike, you have an adorable baby girl who, by the way, Mike's daughter and I were FaceTiming a lot last week at the Super Bowl. And there was even moments where Mike's daughter was like, no, not you, Daddy, Zach. She just wanted to talk to Uncle Zach all throughout the trip when her old man and I were having some fun in New Orleans. But I have to ask you a parental decision here, Mike. So would you take a 4-month-old, just wondering, a 4-month-old to the parade? If mom and dad are massive Eagles fans, would you feel good taking your 4-month-old into the craziness of Philadelphia where you can't control anything and there's going to be a lot of drunk fans just doing some crazy stuff? Would you take a 4-month-old?
I wouldn't take my 4-month-old out of her bedroom for the first moments of her life. I wouldn't, but this was my first kid. I think if I had another one, I'd be a little bit less careful because I think with your first kid, you're just like so nervous about everything.
Yeah, and you mess so many things up the first time.
And not even just messing up, you're so nervous. You want to protect everything, and then you start to realize they're a lot more durable than you would think. I've seen people like I went to a Green Day concert back in New Jersey in the summer.
I want to be an American.
Oh, no, actually, it was in Queens, yeah. And it was incredible. There was a woman there with like a 2.5-month-old in one of those baby carriers.
Talk about an American idiot.
And I'm like, that's got to be too young. I'm like, how old is your baby? She's like, almost 3 months. I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you? But the kid was fine. They had little headphones on. So I think at the end of the day, you probably could do it. I just would not have the chutzpah to pull that off.
So my first ever childhood friend, I was born the 9th. He was born the 14th. He's a massive, massive Philadelphia Eagles fan. And he doesn't live that far from me now. And he's married, and his wife, right, Annalie, absolutely beautiful. So you have Annalie and Spencer. They invited me over for dinner the other night. They wanted to hear about the Super Bowl trip, right? They wanted to bask in the glory of their Eagles winning the Super Bowl with someone that was there and, right, was basically staying with the team. And they wanted to hear all the stories from the after party and all that. So they invited me over. They made me dinner. And then they go, are you going to the parade? And I'm like, no, I'm not going to the parade. You know, I like the Eagles, but I'm a Patriot fan. And also, I have no desire, if I'm not working, to stand in the cold with a bunch of drunks for hours and hours and hours. And even though I love Eagles fans, hear the Eagles fan chant just get botched and completely just destroyed. The mayor who was like ELJES or however she spelled it. I said, I have no desire to go. I go, are you guys going? They're like, yeah. So I said to my buddy Spencer, I go, oh, what, your mom, right? Nyla's grandmother's probably watching the baby, right? They go, no, we're taking the baby to the parade. And the baby is at most, 4 or 5 months old? I couldn't believe that. A 4 or 5 month-year-old at the parade. I saw a video of Zach Gelb signing a baby at the parade. And I couldn't really make out whose baby it was. I texted them. I go, is this Nyla? I was curious. And they go, no, it wasn't us. And I go, first missed assignment for Zach Gelb this season. I said, I need your baby to get signed. I need to go viral today. But I guess if I was a parent, and I'm not, at least not that I know of, I would not take a 4 or 5 month old. But they were at the parade, and I checked in with them about like an hour ago, and they said it was a wonderful time, and the baby looked adorable, looked like she was having a blast. So that was just something that I thought of right out of the gate. Anyway, here was Bryant McFadden with us yesterday from CBS Sports HQ, the 2-time Super Bowl champion, former defensive back for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Here we go. Here are his top 5 quarterbacks coming off the 2024 season and coming off Super Bowl 59.
Going into this season, based on what we just watched, I would have Lamar, Josh, Pat, Jalen, Joe.
Wow, you put Lamar 1, even when he couldn't beat Josh? I know it wasn't his fault because Mark Andrews can't catch the football, but I would still go Patrick Mahomes number 1.
No, I'm just talking about individual, right? This is an individual ranking. The best quarterback in 2024 in terms of individual numbers, in terms of winning.
Gotcha.
Right? I felt like Lamar was the best quarterback, even though he didn't win the MVP. He won first team All-Pro. I felt like he was the best quarterback. He's won. Josh Allen won MVP. Right there on the cusp of being next to Lamar Jackson, but he did win the hardware. Number 2, Pat Mahomes, because of what he did with what was surrounding him. Remember, Pat Mahomes didn't have Rashid Rice for the majority of the year. Didn't miss a beat. Got his team to a championship. You have to factor that into the equation. And for Jalen Hurts, he's a winner. Individually speaking, Joe Burrow put up more numbers because he had to. But wins means something for me in terms of why I have Jalen at 4 over Joe Burrow, who's 5th.
So that was Bryant McFadden. I think ranking quarterbacks is so difficult, and Bryant made it clear this is coming off this season and how they played this season. I do think it's tough on just only focusing coming off of this season, and I still have to factor in things in the past. Now, how far do you go in accounting for the past? Like, for example, if I got on the radio and said Aaron Rodgers is still a top 5 quarterback because he's been a 4-time MVP or however many times he won the award, well, I don't think Aaron Rodgers the last 2 years has done enough One, he was hurt, and then last year he got off to such a slow start to really make that a claim that I could provide merit and I could justify that claim. So I'm factoring in, Super Bowl championships. I'm factoring in, regular season numbers, MVP awards, and then also I look at really what they've done for the last 2-3 years, and then how I project them going into next season. I still have to have Patrick Mahomes as my top quarterback in the sport. I get it. Patrick Mahomes was god-awful in the Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes played his worst game maybe ever of his life in Super Bowl 59. But I still give him the benefit of the doubt, and I still think he's the most feared player in the NFL, and this dude already has 2 MVPs, 3 Super Bowl championships, 3 MVPs, and if a bad performance for Patrick Mahomes and a bad season for Patrick Mahomes is getting to the Super Bowl and losing, and I get it, he was horrible in the game, the strip sack, the 2 interceptions, one of them went for 6, the other one basically went for 6 as well, because shortly after that, they put the ball in the end zone. Well, then I'm still okay with what he's done in the last few years, putting Patrick Mahomes in the number 1 spot. So until we see him get knocked off a few times, and for the foreseeable future, I still put Patrick Mahomes as the top quarterback in the league. Now, after that, I put Josh Allen as the second best quarterback in football. And before the start of this season, I probably would have put Joe Burrow 2 and then Josh Allen 3. But I put Josh Allen now in at 2 because if it wasn't for Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen would have already been in a Super Bowl and he already probably would have won a Super Bowl. And when the Bills lose to the Chiefs, it's not as if Josh Allen doesn't play well. Josh Allen did more than enough this year. Josh Allen did more than enough a few years ago when they lost the game in 13 seconds. Josh Allen, heck, even last year when he threw that bazooka down the right sideline for 80 yards, Stephon Diggs just has to catch the football, and he wasn't able to do that. But not only because he won the MVP this year is why Josh Allen moves into the second spot, but you have the dual threat abilities as well. But I also don't think there's a quarterback in the league that does more for his team with less than Josh Allen. Look at what Josh Allen has around him. Don't get me wrong, he's a good offensive line. I think an underappreciated offensive line. But who's his number 1 wide receiver? Keon Coleman? Amari Cooper? Who is the Shakir? Who is the number 1 wide receiver? Dalton Kincaid hasn't popped off. Dawson Knox is a fine tight end in this league. His best next complimentary piece is James Cook. And by the way, James Cook is already operating the playbook. I saw he scrubbed the Bills from his social media, took him out of his bio, and he wants $15 million a year. And James Cook is a good back, but he's not in the same conversation of elite NFL running backs like a Christian McCaffrey, a Saquon Barkley, or even a Derrick Henry. He's just not. He's really damn good. He's a very good running back, but he's not an elite running back in the NFL. So I would put Josh Allen in at 2. In at number 3, I have to put Lamar Jackson. I know he's never been to a Super Bowl. I know he's never won an AFC championship. And he didn't beat Buffalo this year. And last year he had Kansas City at home on the ropes, and his offense couldn't do anything. But I take a look at Lamar Jackson. He was 6th in passing yards this year, 4,172. He was tied for 2nd in passing touchdowns with 41. He had the best quarterback rating in the league. But you can't just do only the passing numbers. Because not only is he an elite thrower of the football now, for how much people knock and crap on Lamar Jackson when it comes to throwing the football, he is also an elite runner of the football. So you put up elite passing yards, and then also, not only is it 4,172 passing yards, 41 passing touchdowns, only 4 interceptions, you lead the league in QBR, and then, by the way, you put up 915 yards on the ground that he just did this past year, and also 4 rushing touchdowns too. The dual threat ability is what moves him up into that number 3 spot. Then I put Joe Burrow in at 4. Joe Burrow had the most passing touchdowns this year. He had the most passing yards. The only thing that goes against Joe Burrow, and I think he did everything possible for his team. Now, the slow starts are inexcusable, don't get me wrong. That defense was god-awful. But if the Cincinnati Bengals made the playoffs this year, which they almost did towards the end of the season after many of us did write them off, Joe Burrow probably would have won the MVP. Like, you look at that team, they have a lot of star power, but they now need to fill out the rest of the roster. T. Higgins probably going to leave. You have Jamar Chase. He was a stud. Trey Hendrickson led the league in sacks. He's a stud. And then Joe Burrow led the league in passing yards and passing touchdowns. Like, think about it. If I said to you before the start of the season that the Cincinnati Bengals would have the leading wide receiver in football, the leading passing yard quarterback and passing touchdown quarterback, and also the guy that led the league in sacks, you would definitely say, they're a playoff team. And if I told you they weren't a playoff team, you would be asking me what crack was I probably smoking. You probably would. But the thing with Joe Burrow is the Bengals haven't made the playoffs the last 2 seasons. So that when you get into this elite group, Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, Burrow, that plays a factor in it. And also there's been, unfortunately, some injuries for Joe Burrow. And then in at 5 is Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts may not be the best regular season quarterback. He may not be the best statistical quarterback. But the guy that everyone is chasing is Patrick Mahomes. And now in 2 Super Bowls, you've had Jalen Hurts outplay Patrick Mahomes not once, but twice. And then he finally got rewarded with the victory. And he just won a Super Bowl MVP. So that's how I rank the top 5 quarterbacks in football entering this season. For the season that we will go through the offseason and get set for the 2025 season. And September, usually they say, wake me up when September ends. Do another Green Day reference. But let me get to September. I know I like to enjoy the summer, but I'm already missing my college football and my NFL. But my top 5 quarterbacks right now going into next season, Patrick Mahomes 1, Josh Allen 2, Lamar Jackson 3, Joe Burrow 4, and Jalen Hurts 5. How do you rank your top 5 quarterbacks entering the 2025 season? 855-212-4227, 855-212-4227. And based off what Brian McFadden said, he said Lamar Jackson is the top quarterback in the league. Who is your top quarterback? And is the number 1 spot no longer Patrick Mahomes? To be clear, I still think the number 1 spot does belong to Mahomes. Once again, Mahomes 1, Allen 2, Lamar 3, Burrow 4, and then the Super Bowl 59 MVP, Jalen Hurts, in that number 5 spot. All right, we'll take a time out on the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. When we come on back, we have a former Miami booster who did go to the Slammer. He now supposedly has some insight on one New York football team that may be moving up in the draft to get Cam Ward, and it's not the one that you think it is. We'll tell you that audio and play you that audio next, and who could be some teams that can move up into the 1st or 2nd spot of the NFL draft to maybe go select either Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
All righty, welcome back in. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Nevin Shapiro was that big Miami booster. You know, he is a convicted felon as well. So I realize the audio that I'm about to play for you, you need to take it with a grain of salt. But still, with that being said, Nevin Shapiro at one time was as connected not only with the U, but with any athlete that was living in Miami, right? He was a jock sniffer. I think that's the nice way to say it. He loved hanging out with the celebrities, with the athletes, and he'd be willing to do whatever it did take for, right, Miami to try to be successful or anything to kind of suck up to athletes. So Nevin Shapiro, I guess, does a podcast now called the Nevin Shapiro Fan Club. And also, I remember we played audio from him about a month ago where he predicted that the Giants were going to get Cam Ward. And I think it was whoever was the offensive coordinator at Miami was going to join the Giants, and he was going to be their next offensive coordinator as well. Now, we know that didn't end up happening. But now Nevin Shapiro is hearing something else when it comes to a team potentially trading up to the number 1 or number 2 pick in the draft if Tennessee and Cleveland are open for business. And just listen to this audio, and then we'll react to it.
So I'm told the Giants are out of the Cam Ward business as of today. The team that's starting to surface as the player for Cam Ward and is putting together a big package. So it looks like Matthew Stafford is going to be going to the Giants. Had the Giants had the first pick, they're still trying to get the Cam Ward, but they're not going to be able to. The team that's starting to surface as the player for Cam Ward and is putting together a big package is the New York Jets. And I was told that firsthand, specifically, same way I was told about Cam Ward being the first pick, which, by the way, makes me look accurate. The Giants decided to go win. Otherwise, they'd have Cam Ward sitting there for them.
Wow, the New York Jets.
The New York Jets are making a strong play for Cam Ward.
I can't take that seriously with the music in the background. Am I going to see an action movie or I'm getting information on the NFL draft? And when he said in the clip, because we condensed it a little bit, like the Giants are trying to go win, that was in response to these reports out there that the Giants are trying to go get Matthew Stafford. I don't think Matthew Stafford, by the way, is going to be the next Giant quarterback. I'm not believing that Matthew Stafford is going to leave the Rams, right, and get traded from the Rams and go try to finish his career with the Giants. And the only way I could see Matthew Stafford wanting to be the next Giant quarterback is because maybe he thinks playing the end of his career in New York will help him down the road, right, getting the New York media behind his side, and back him for whenever it gets into those Hall of Fame debates, as Matthew Stafford is nowhere close to being a first ballot Hall of Famer, but winning a Super Bowl as a quarterback in this league, there will at least be a conversation potentially one day about Matthew Stafford being in the Hall of Fame. So Nevin Shapiro, what a source. He is now saying that the New York Jets are trying to move up to go get Cam Ward. Now, I'm not going to totally dismiss it. And here's why. So the Jets just brought in a new general manager. They brought in a new head coach. And they got rid of Aaron Rodgers. And they have a young core, but if you don't go get an actual quarterback for that young core, how many of these guys are going to stick around? Even the defensive guys like Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner, but more importantly, someone like Garrett Wilson who's already showed his frustration. If you don't get him his guy at the quarterback position, you could run the risk of him eventually requesting a trade or not trying to re-sign with the New York Jets. And we've talked about this. Who are the great options out there? I actually don't think Matthew Stafford would be a bad option for the Jets. I don't. But I still believe that Matthew Stafford's going to be back with the Rams. Are you interested in exploring a Russell Wilson or a Justin Fields? Neither of those guys are franchise quarterbacks. I think Sam Darnold, right? The Jets could be interested in him. But I think that that Sam Darnold wouldn't touch the Jets with a 10-foot pole right now, if I'm just being honest. So you look at the Jets, they're sitting there at 7. We talk about the Raiders who are sitting there at 6, potentially trading up in the draft. So you're only one spot behind the Raiders. If Tennessee or Cleveland is clear that they don't want to draft a quarterback, or just one of them doesn't want to draft a quarterback, and you're good with either Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, I actually don't think it's the craziest thing in the world for a team like the Jets to trade up, because then you could identify who your guy is in Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward. You go get one of them, and then you have new life for the franchise moving forward with a younger core that could get excited once again because you're at least putting that flag in the ground on who your quarterback's going to be. Here's the tricky part, though. We talked to a few people at the Super Bowl. Ryan Leaf was one. And I think even Thomas Dimitroff, if I'm wrong on this, I apologize. They were alluding to it. And I know Leaf said it, that neither Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward, they'll go in the first round, but he doesn't view them as first-round quarterbacks. Like, they will not rate out to be a first-round quarterback, but there's always a need for a quarterback. I still think only 2 quarterbacks go in the first round because I have no clue when we try to identify who's going to be the third quarterback. It seems if Jackson Dart's the hot name right now, if I'm taking Jackson Dart in the first round, I'm getting prepared to get fired. Within 2 years. I would not use a first-round pick on Jackson Dart, but I could use a first-round pick on Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. Here's the tricky part, though. If you got to trade up, that means you got to get future first-round picks. So is this the time that you want to pull the trigger on that if maybe these quarterbacks aren't as good and aren't viewed the same way as a typical quarterback going in the top 5 or the top 6 of the draft or even in the top 3 of the draft usually does get viewed? But I look at Tennessee and Cleveland. I think one of those teams will take a quarterback. I don't think both will take a quarterback. So there will be a possibility of trying to execute a trade, especially when the Giants are at 3. And here's what I think I know. I do think right now Cam Ward's going to be the first quarterback off the board. And I do think either Tennessee or Cleveland will take Cam Ward. Whoever doesn't take Cam Ward will either take Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter. That's what I think I know. But what I know for sure is as long as two quarterbacks don't go in the first two picks, and I don't expect two quarterbacks to go in the first two picks, the Giants absolutely, whether it's Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, and I'm thinking it's going to be Shedeur Sanders be the second quarterback off the board, the Giants are going to gobble them up at 3. So you're going to have to move past the Giants in order to assure that you're getting a quarterback, unless if a team like Tennessee or Cleveland both surprise us and both don't take a quarterback. So teams that could potentially move up in the draft. Stu, I have to say your Raiders, right? Are you sold that the Raiders are going to move up, or do you kind of think the Raiders will just stay put, hope that a quarterback will fall to them, and if they don't, maybe they'll pivot elsewhere, or maybe they'll pivot, obviously it happens before the draft, on a Sam Darnold, Justin Fields, or Russell Wilson, whoever. Right now, if you had to say out of 100%, whether it's trading up or having a quarterback fall into them, what are the odds, in your opinion, of the Raiders getting their franchise quarterback in the top 6 picks of the draft?
Say maybe 15%, 20%.
Yeah,
They're probably not going to trade up. They're probably going to stay put, I would think.
Because the Giants are taking a quarterback. So you would need Tennessee, Cleveland to pass on a quarterback. The Patriots, and as long as Trevor Lawrence is still with the Jaguars, the Jaguars aren't taking a quarterback as well.
And it's hard, too, because I could say they could trade up with, like, the Patriots or Titans or Browns. But those teams want the top players that aren't quarterbacks. So if they're moving down to 6, then they're probably not going to get that player.
Yeah, the more and more I think about it, too, I think that there could be a little bit of a contentious relationship, where I'm not saying it's vicious and nasty how you would view a contentious relationship, but I think it could be an unintentional contentious relationship between John Spytek, the new general manager of the Raiders, and then also Pete Carroll. Because think about it. Spytek is a younger guy, first time at the job. He's close with Brady, so maybe he has a longer leash than some other first-time general managers. And for Pete Carroll, I know he doesn't look his age, but he's still in his 70s. And he's still someone that you would think at most 4 years maybe has left in his coaching career, maybe 5, and he's only on a 3-year contract. So I don't know if Pete's going to have the patience. And remember, he did once go after signing Matt Flynn. He handed the baton over to Russell Wilson, and that quickly had success. But that Seahawks roster was a great roster. The Raiders roster is nowhere close to being, forget great, how about just adequate? How about just average? So I look at that relationship with Spytek and Carroll. I just wonder if their viewpoints maybe cause them to butt heads. And that's why I tend to think that the Raiders don't move up in the draft. They end up staying at 6. Spytek maybe even moves down, but he could take the best player available at 6, because the Raiders have holes everywhere. They're like Swiss cheese. And then Pete can also say, hey, we'll get a veteran quarterback in there, whether it's Russell Wilson that he knows very well, whether it's Sam Darnold, or even a youngster like Justin Fields, who some people still think has upside, and at least that quarterback has experience, so you could hit the ground running instead of trying to develop a brand new quarterback coming on in and you have no clue how it's going to go. So that's what I was thinking about the Raiders, and we'll update my QB. We'll do the QB 1.0 predictions on where people are going to land. What I said yesterday, I now have a different name for the Raiders today. I thought long and hard about that, and I keep on going back to that Spytek Carroll whole relationship. I could see the Jets moving up. I actually don't think that would be bad, because if you're just settling on Russell Wilson, or if you're just settling Justin Fields, that's a stopgap. It really is. You need to go bring new life, and maybe you go give up future first-round picks to go get a Shedeur Sanders or a Cam Ward. The Saints potentially, I wonder if they'll move up at 9. Mickey Loomis has job security and then some. So I don't think he has to. But I'm just looking at teams that are in the first half of the draft that could move up. And after that, I don't think anyone else in the first 15 picks. If you're looking to trade up into the 1 or 2 spots, it's really the Raiders, the Jets, potentially the Saints. After that, like the Bears aren't, the Niners aren't, the Cowboys aren't. Imagine the Cowboys trade up and get Shedeur after having Dak. That'd be crazy. I don't think the Dolphins are. The Colts, I don't think are. And the Falcons, they have Michael Penix Jr. So could there anyone be outside of the top 15 that maybe do what Kansas City or Buffalo did years ago to go get their quarterbacks? Could you potentially see that, especially like what Kansas City did? And you look at those teams, Arizona, I think, will run it back with Murray for 1 more year. Obviously, the Bengals know. Seahawks at 18. That would be a fun one. But you're going to have to give up a lot of capital. And once again, Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders may not be worth a first-round pick and then also then some more first-round picks if you're talking about moving up for 18. So, Pittsburgh could be fun at 21, but that's a long ways to move up. It's possible, but that's a really steep climb to go from 21 to 1 or 21 to 2. So I think you have to look at the first 15 picks. And on potential move-ups, the Giants could be in play, but I think they stay at 3 and they get whichever quarterback is remaining there because I don't think Tennessee and Cleveland are both taking quarterbacks. And then it's really the Raiders and the Jets that you really circle. And you go, okay, the Raiders and the Jets, if you want your quarterback, you're going to have to move up past the Giants to get into that 2 or 1 spot. Zach Gelb Show, Infinity Sports Network. We'll take a timeout. We will come on back. We'll update some of the biggest stories in the world of sports with some audio. We'll get to the news brief next. I just want to make you aware of a story that is breaking. Obviously, remember last year, the unfortunate shooting at the Kansas City Chiefs parade. I just was reading this via one of the aggregators, ML Football. 2 people were shot as crowds were gathered for the Eagles Super Bowl parade. Police tell CBS News the status of both victims are currently unknown. Local authorities are investigating. And now, obviously, this is back-to-back years of shootings at a Super Bowl parade. So our best wishes. We hope everyone is able to be okay that did get shot. And everyone around it, we hope that you're able to get home safely as well. So on a day that should be a joyous occasion, celebrating, having fun, and celebrating a world championship for a wonderful Eagles team, unfortunately, you have people there that just ruin the fun for everybody else. And as all we know so far, and I don't have a ton more information, so I apologize, but 2 people were shot at the Eagles parade, according to police that did talk to CBS News. So we send nothing but well wishes to the 2 people that were shot, obviously, and hopefully there's no one else that was injured or harmed, and hopefully that the day could go on and continue to be okay. Zach Gelb Show, Infinity Sports Network. Here's Zach.
Infinity Sports Network, Sports Flash.
Well, there were millions lining the streets of Philadelphia today for that parade. Despite freezing cold temperatures, the world champion Eagles were honored, and they ultimately made their way to the steps of the Museum of Art, made famous in the movie Rocky. The Eagles are the underdog in Super Bowl 59. Now they are the team to beat, and GM Howie Roseman said they're not done yet.
I bleed for this city! Go Eagles! Our players, our staff have done an unbelievable job. We are 2-time world champs, and we're coming back strong. Go Birds!
Offensive lineman Landon Dickerson's offseason will start with surgery on his knee. He played through the injury in the big game last Sunday after getting hurt in the conference championship. The Dolphins are releasing former Pro Bowl running back Raheem Mostert. The Giants are exploring putting up a 10% stake of the team for sale. They might have a buyer in-house, so to speak. Eli Manning said on CNBC it has piqued his interest. There is no action in the NBA and NHL tonight. It's a night off of the Four Nations tournament while the NBA celebrates All-Star Weekend. I'm Rich Eck.
Hey, like us on Facebook. Our handle is INF Sportsnet. That's INF Sportsnet for our Facebook page. This is the Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. 30 seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
It's time to ask the pros. You, the listener, gets to ask us a question brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Simply tweet your question at INFSportsNet or at Zach Gelb using the hashtag #AskThePros. Be listening later in the program. We might answer your question. Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. O'Reilly Auto Parts. Let's go to Tom Pelissero. He was on the Rich Eisen show right here on the Infinity Sports Network. Did the Jets tell Aaron Rodgers, you must not go on the Pat McAfee show?
I believe this is overstated. Mm-hmm. There were no ultimatums. It was not, hey, here's what you're going to do, take it or leave it. You're not allowed to do that, for one thing, under the collective bargaining agreement. You can't technically restrict, you can't require anybody to show up for voluntary practices, and you can't restrict outside media activities. But you could have a conversation about commitment and things like that. And these are all different things they were talking about, again, both internally and when they were having conversations with Aaron Rodgers. I believe if he were back, that would have been the setup. But it's not as if, hey, take it or leave it. That wasn't it did not get to that point from my understanding. But ultimately, they arrived at the decision this was not going to work.
So I just don't get it. And I know insiders have to be very careful with how they say things because they don't want to burn any bridges with their sources. But I've seen Tom Pelissero and then also, and I like Pelissero, and Rappaport I like too. They're both like, well, Diana Rossini's original report wasn't wrong, but aggregators blew it out of proportion. No, they didn't. And I understand that we could sometimes go after aggregators, right? I've said things sometimes that have been taken out of context. But like here, I heard what Diana Rossini said. Like, we played it for you. And she talked about how, you know, that you have to be at training camp, and then also you have to be at the offseason program, and they didn't want him on McAfee. Yeah, they can't force him to not go on McAfee. They can't say, oh, for the voluntary portion of OTAs, like, yeah, you have to be there. But they clearly told him, we want you there, and we don't want you doing this. So if the disconnect here is, oh, it wasn't an ultimatum, it's almost if our bosses came up to me and they were like, Zach, hey, we'd prefer you not to talk about, I don't know, the Memphis Grizzlies today. Like, they can't demand me. They can't prevent me from talking about the Memphis Grizzlies if I ended up talking about it in the show. But if your bosses go up to you and go, hey, we don't want you to do this, and you do it, what do you think's going to happen? So if that's what it is, oh, the Jets didn't say you can't do this, you can't do that, we prefer you don't. If you're saying that there's no ultimatum, then those are the things that they said, and that's the big disconnect here, like, give me a break. That's just, I think it's getting down into too much of the minutia of this and like the little, oh yeah, it was said, but it wasn't demanded, which just doesn't really make sense to me. All right, let's get some audio from the parade. This courtesy of Fox 29. Landon Dickerson, he was cursing at the parade.
Landon.
All I gotta say is go Bird!
Oh, we apologize for that.
We apologize.
I'm sorry. All these news networks, you know how many times people now curse? I understand you're a news network and everything. You're at a parade. This is Savage season. So if a player goes, you know, go bleeping birds, it's not the end of the world. Here is Quinyon Mitchell, who I heard was lost in the sauce at the parade. It's just a nice way to say it, courtesy of Fox 29.
I love that they're just hopping off the buses.
Hey, a message!
What?
To the people of Philadelphia, your love message!
Go! Eagles!
Oh, wow. Quinyon Mitchell and Avonte Maddox are feeling it right now.
Was that Quinyon Mitchell or my buddy Spencer who was drunk at the parade? You can't tell the difference. That's awesome. Milton Williams, he's a free agent, had a great Super Bowl, had a good year for the Eagles, CBS 3. How about your future, Milton Williams, with the Eagles?
Milton, I know you got some decisions to make in the future, but is this where you want to be?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, you see the type of team we got. You know, we feel confident being able to do it again.
So I saw that Milton Williams' father, he's been doing a celebration. I guess at the Super Bowl, he was doing like belt to ass for how much they were just whipping on the Chiefs. So he was literally standing there doing the air motion with like a belt, just like whipping the air as if it was an ass. So I guess he brought an actual belt to the parade, and he's on, right, the float of Milton Williams. And you just see him with a belt just smacking the air. And it's awesome. I love celebrations like that. Did you also see, Stu, I got to ask you about this. Did you, I know
the shirt.
I know that you are a Swiftie.
Yeah.
Did you see what CJ Gardner-Johnson rolled up with?
I sure did.
So I guess after the game, CJ Gardner-Johnson, he was talking about Travis Kelce's ex, and he was like, that's what happens when you mess with one of our queens and you end up dating Taylor Swift. I guess that's like the politically correct way to say it without getting myself in any trouble. So the Swifties didn't like that. And I guess CJ Gardner-Johnson's mother owns a restaurant, and they bombarded her Yelp page with terrible reviews, and the Eagles fans responded with positive reviews. So CJ Gardner-Johnson, who's an elite crap talker and was crap talking Eagles fans the one year he left, and then he came back, and now he's like Philadelphia's favorite son. He showed up to the parade with the sweatshirt, and this was Super Bowl LIX, LIX. He said, Swifties can licks my... And it was, I guess I could say it on the radio. I'll just pause so it's not as if I just said it. Right? I could say that. Questionable footballs. All right? Swifties can licks my footballs, except there was no foot in it. All right? There we go. So that's what CJ Gardner-Johnson showed up to the parade. Since you are our resident Swiftie here on the show, Stu.
Oh, boy.
Would you like to say anything to CJ Gardner-Johnson?
No, I don't think leaving negative Yelp reviews on this poor woman's restaurant is very nice. I wouldn't do that.
Okay.
Yeah, don't do that.
So you think it's just the fun of the sport, really? Not the negative reviews, just what CJ Gardner-Johnson said and
just
him wearing the shirt to the parade.
I don't think you could be offended by that.
And I love Chiefs fans. How dare CJ Gardner-Johnson do this? Oh, the Eagles, they don't win with any class. Like, give me a break. Come on, what are we doing? Here is on NFL Films, Justin Reed, Travis Kelce, and Patrick Mahomes. They were confident despite being down 27-0.
Patriots did it, Coach. We can do this. The Patriots did 27-3. We can do this. Come on, dog. Come on, man. We all we got, man. Let's go. Come on.
Get it, baby. So put it on the board.
Well, can I just have a little message here? If you're thinking you're the Patriots, little secret. Well, guess what? You're not. It's funny how I heard Nick Wright say, who's like Chief Sycophant 1. I heard him say at halftime he spent time writing up his argument on why coming back down from, 24-0, I think it was at halftime, is better than 28-3. That's how much real estate the Patriots have in some of these Chiefs fans' head. Like, just hey, you guys have your dynasty, we had our dynasty. Our dynasty right now is better than your dynasty. You still got a long ways to go, though, but it's still pretty damn good. Anyway, here's Tim Kawakami, is how you say his last name? Willard and Dibbs, the 95.7 The Game, longtime 49ers reporter. Why are the Niners willing to move on from my best friend, Deebo Samuel?
I've heard for a few weeks now that 49ers weren't unhappy with Deebo's weight at the end of the season. Now, he'd gotten hurt. Some of this happens, but they were not happy. And we saw it. He did not have the explosion. He was not bouncing off of people. He was not running through the defense like he'd done at least 2-3 years ago. It's just the reality of the way things develop. And I think at this point, he probably will not be a 49er, but there's still a chance he could still remain a 49er. I don't think that's the way this is headed, but they got to figure out what a good trade would be.
I said it last year. I said they were going to pay Brandon Ayuk, and they were going to trade Deebo Samuel a year from now, and now it's a year from now. Deebo Samuel, he's dealing with some Zach Gelb Show karma. That's what it is. He's fallen off ever since he hung up the phone and cried to his PR person, Ashley. It's just Zach Gelb Show karma right there. And I still think Deebo's a good player, but he's not great. And with how much money guys are getting on the Niners, someone's got to go. And he's an in-betweener now. Sometimes he'll look like a number one. Other days he'll look like a number two. So I think someone can get a good wide receiver, and I do expect him to ultimately get traded from the 49ers. Let's go to Shaq. He cursed twice on Inside the NBA last night.
In the words of Marshawn Lynch, I'm tired of shit, America. We getting fired anyway, Ernie.
Well, here's the thing. So he said they're getting fired anyway, Ernie, so bleep it. I saw that Michael McCarthy of Front Office Sports, Shaquille O'Neal has an agreement in place for an enormous long-term deal with TNT Sports that will pay him over $15 million per year. So he's going to stay with Turner. I have no clue what this is going to be moving forward and what Inside the NBA is going to look like, if it's even going to look like anything at all. So we'll continue to see that and monitor that throughout the years of what TNT is going to do with the whole television landscape changing in basketball. And finally, A.J. Brown. He has a message for his haters.
They said I was a diva. They said all I care about was stats. If you're going to get all those things wrong about me, but one thing you can get right, I'm a champion.
So there you go. A.J. Brown channeling his inner excellence as the Philadelphia Eagles are the most excellent team in the NFL from this past season. So there's some audio from the Eagles parade as well. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. So entering this past season, Nick Sirianni was on the hot seat. He ended up winning a Super Bowl. There were questions about what Jalen Hurts could be as a quarterback. When we come on back, we'll go around the room here. Who is a coach that's on the hot seat entering the 2025 NFL season that you're curious to see how we're talking about them at the end of next season? And who is a quarterback that's under a ton of pressure that you're curious how we're going to be talking about that quarterback at the end of the 2025 season as well. Hour number 1 in the books. We're coming on back, and we'll kick off hour number 2 on a Friday edition of the Zach Gelb Show when we come on back after these short messages in 5 minutes.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. 15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Alrighty, hour number 2 of our radio program, Zach Gelb Show, Infinity Sports Network. So this time last year, there were a lot of questions about Jalen Hurts. Was his performance in Super Bowl 57 just a one-time wonder, or was he going to be able to replicate that? Now we know after Sunday, not only did he come close to replicating that, he did better. So he ended up winning that Super Bowl and taking home the Super Bowl MVP. And then for Nick Sirianni going into this season, it was, man, guy's a player coach, but he's a doormat. They started off 10-1. He lost control of his locker room. He should not have been brought back, right? I said those things. I'll stand, you got to admit when you're wrong, and I ended up being wrong. But even earlier in this season, like after that Falcons game, another moment as well, even in that one victory, I think it was up against Cleveland when he's drawing back and forth with the fans. People just didn't think this was going to be a successful season for the Eagles and Sirianni was going to be a problem. But Sirianni went into the season with his seat on fire, and now that seat is frigid cold. He may as well be living in Alaska with how cold it is, because Nick Sirianni is now a Super Bowl champion, and so is Jalen Hurts. So let's do this. I want to go around the room here, and I want to discuss a coach and a quarterback that is under pressure going into this season. So let's start with the coach. I'm actually going to go Mike McDaniel. And you know what? Maybe I'll end up being wrong on this one. But Mike McDaniel, I've never been a huge fan of his as a head coach. Don't get me wrong. He's a player's coach. He's had some success in the NFL. He is very popular. But with Mike McDaniel, I always feel as if I don't get the joke. Everyone loves this dude. I hear him at the podium, and I know he could sound a little spacey, right? And he tries to be a little quirky and funny. I've never really laughed all that much at Mike McDaniel. The one time I did laugh about Mike McDaniel is when he did the one interview and then ran off the field right after that and just dashed right into the locker room. And Stu, by the way, dressed up as Mike McDaniel one year. I thought that was a great Halloween costume. But Mike McDaniel so far, he hasn't been bad. 9-8, 11-6, and 8-9. But you take a look back at 2023, he was someone that had Vic Fangio as defensive coordinator, and his players were too soft for the coaching of Vic Fangio. And I get it, right? Up against the Dolphins, up against the Bills, Vic Fangio didn't do a good job. But there's been a lot of changes in Miami. They have a lot of talent. I kind of look at them as they're the San Francisco 49ers light. They're trying to be the Niners, and McDaniel comes from the San Francisco 49ers and the Shanahan tree. But they got enough talent there where they should have a playoff win on their resume. And they don't. And I know that Tua hasn't always been healthy, but we've seen quarterbacks get hurt and then coaches be still competent. Coaches still find a way to get somewhat of a positive product out of their team. And you take a look back, it was 2 years ago, Kevin Stefanski lost to Sean Watson for the season, made Joe Flacco look elite again, and the Browns made the playoffs. We have seen quarterbacks go down and then those teams still be successful. The value of Tua went up this year because without Tua Tagovailoa on the field, and I was someone that went into this season saying Tyreek Hill, not Tua, is the Dolphins' most valuable player. I was wrong on that. Because without Tua Tagovailoa, the Dolphins looked absolutely lost this year, and this brainiac genius and this innovative offensive mind of Mike McDaniel had no answers. And that locker room has problems in it. I think Mike McDaniel needs to be more of an authoritative voice, but let's be real. Is Mike McDaniel capable of having an authoritative voice? I don't think so. And that's what happens when you're buddy-buddy with your players. But we did see this past year, Nick Sirianni, really the last 2.5 months, kind of grow up as a head coach. And I think it's something that's lost on us because we expect instant results. We expect instant gratification. We expect instant results. When you're getting your first job as a head coach, there's going to be growing pains. And for Mike McDaniel, he's been successful, right? He's 28-23 as a head coach, 9-8, 11-6, 2 years in the postseason, and this year he just missed it, being 8-9. So he is entitled for another season. I don't think they should have moved off of Mike McDaniel. And let's be real, I think the biggest problem in that organization is Chris Grier. You can't be being a GM in this league. And you can't say, oh, well, the fans and the media care more about the offensive line and, right, the concerns about the offensive line, and we do. And your offensive line is still not up to par. And then also you've made moves and you brought in big-time players. And, yeah, Jalen Ramsey and Tyreek Hill have been successful in Miami, but what have you won with them? And you have a core here that should be able to win a playoff game. And this was really the year where, through the first 2 years, I think with Mike McDaniel, I said, I didn't really get the love affair with him. I didn't really get the joke, but when you're 9-8 and 11-6 and you make the playoffs in your first 2 seasons in the NFL, I can't really crush you. I can't really criticize you, especially in that one playoff game when I think he was sitting in a vape pen on the sideline in Buffalo. He didn't even have his quarterback. So through the first 2 years, I didn't really have a lot that I could criticize of Mike McDaniel, but there was just something about him that an alarm went off in my head and just kind of told me, I just can't get there with McDaniel. Like, sometimes you could be dating someone and you show up to the date, right? You think the person's beautiful. You have a great time. Maybe go back, have a little bam chicka wamp time. You go out a few times and then just something happens. And, right, everything is right in front of you. You're like, oh, this is going to be a good relationship. I could see us getting into a relationship, dating, maybe getting married one day. And then you go on one date and something just happens and you can't get that image out of your head and you get what the kids call the ick. I've always just had the ick with Mike McDaniel, where there's just something about him where I'm like, I'm not ready to make the full commitment to Mike McDaniel. And now I have those questions this year. But you look at the Dolphins, you got a good quarterback. I know Tyreek Hill is crazy at times, but Tyreek Hill now seems like he's going to want to be there because he's issuing a mea culpa on Radio Row. You got Jalen Waddle. I know they're moving on for Raheem Mostert, but you got Devon Achane. Defensively, you do need some work, but you got some pieces on the defensive side of the ball, and hopefully they could be healthy this year because they got killed at the end of last season, 2 seasons ago, I should say, with injuries late in the year. But this is a Dolphins team. They should be a wild card team next year. Like, the Bills are the standard inside the AFC East. The Chiefs are going to win the AFC West. The AFC North, I guess you give the benefit of the doubt to the Ravens, but it wouldn't shock me if the Ravens don't win the division. And the Texans probably win the South. So if that's the way that it goes for wildcard teams, you're competing with the likes of the Steelers, the Bengals. You're competing with the Chargers, the Broncos. Why can't the Dolphins be a wildcard team? Why can't they be? And quite frankly, if they don't make the playoffs this year, and also I think you need to win a playoff game. But if you can't make the playoffs bare minimum, if I'm Stephen Ross, who's not getting any younger, how can I sit back here and say that I need to continue when this is a year where Chris Grier and Mike McDaniel should be on the hot seat? If they go 9-8 or 8-9 and they miss out on the playoffs again, why would I be able to bring this duo back? So for Mike McDaniel, I'm very curious how we're going to be talking about him at the end of next season. Stu, who is your coach, only your coach, that's on the hot seat entering the 2025 NFL season?
So I would go with another AFC coach that I thought, like Mike McDaniel and the Dolphins, I thought they were going to make the playoffs this year, and that's the Cincinnati Bengals and Zach Taylor.
It's a good one.
It's a big year for him. The fact that, and you've referenced it many times, especially at the start of the show today, having the leading passer, the leading receiver, and the leading sack getter in the league, and to not make the playoffs is ridiculous. So I think the one thing that might save him is
the
Bengals are cheap. If this was another organization, he might have been gone after this past season. So if they don't make the playoffs next year with that core, even though they probably will lose T. Higgins, but if they don't make the playoffs, that's going to be a tough pill to swallow. So I think he's under a lot of pressure next season.
And I think he's under contract through 2026. is Zach Taylor. So if you want to talk about potentially moving on from Zach Taylor, he gets through 2025. It's only 1 year left on the contract. Either way, that's usually the time, unless if you're the Cowboys, where it turns out to be you either extend the coach or you move on from the coach, because coaches usually don't like to go in as the final year of their contract, because then you get the lame duck kind of feel to you. But you look at Marvin Lewis, and I get it. The Bengals, when Marvin Lewis took them over, were just a laughing stock. They were an embarrassment. They were charging players or made players return their old jock straps before they could get a new one. They would charge them for Gatorade and water. But Marvin Lewis never won a playoff game. He's a good coach. Never won a playoff game. And he made the playoffs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 straight years. Didn't win a playoff game. 2 other times made the wild card. Didn't make the playoffs as well, and didn't win 1 game. He then got 1, 2, 3 years after that of missing the postseason before they moved on. And Zach Taylor in 2021 made the Super Bowl, lost in the Super Bowl. Then the following year, he lost in the conference championship game. The last 2 years, not horrible, but 9-8, 9-8, and they missed the playoffs. Yeah, if they miss the playoffs next year, you got to get rid of Zach Taylor. But also, I think if they make the playoffs, to your point, then he's safe. But this is a team that for the foreseeable future, I know they just missed the playoffs last year, so it sounds crazy to say, but when you got Burrow, Jamar Chase, and we'll see if Trey Hendrickson stays there and what happens with this contract and everything moving forward, because he wanted out before the start of the season, and I think T. Higgins is good as gone. You got to go patch up that roster. And losing Jesse Bates, I've said this before, losing Jesse Bates I thought was an enormous loss for them. He's been good with the Falcons, and that defense lost some talent. And now you got to pay Jamar Chase. You've already paid Joe Burrow. You're probably going to lose T. Higgins. I know that they've tinkered with the offensive line a bunch, and it still hasn't got the best results. But you got to go find a way to really load up on the defense this year. Now, we didn't talk about them for Myles Garrett as a potential destination. Now, I know it's inside the division, so it's probably not going to happen. But if a Max Crosby becomes available, can you go get him? But then once again, to your point, you got to give up picks and then pay the guy. So the Bengals, they're a team that they got to start getting back to the postseason, because now we're moving further and further away from those years of getting to a Super Bowl and then also getting to a conference championship game. You always have a window because of the quarterback, but the quarterback suffered some injuries. And you still got Jamar Chase and you got Trey Hendrickson. You know what they have? They have the shiny car in the driveway, right? They got like the Lamborghini in the driveway. And from 3 blocks away, you go, oh, it's a nice Lamborghini. But then as you inch closer and closer and closer and closer, you go, all right, we still have a Lamborghini, but the window's bashed in. There are 2 tires that are flat and the engine light's on. So, yeah, you got a Lamborghini. Right? You got Burrow, you got Chase, you got Hendrickson, but you don't have the other pieces around him. And if that job becomes open, that would be an attractive job, even with the cheapness of that organization, because of those 3 pieces, mainly the 2 pieces. I love Hendrickson, but because you got one of, if not the best 1-2 punch in football with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. Samter, who is your coach that you think is under pressure going into next season?
I mean, under pressure and hot seat are 2 different things to me. Like Shanahan, I think, is under a ton of pressure. But I think for hot seat, I look at like Raheem Morris or Mike Tomlin. Those are the 2 guys that stand out most to me. There were so many expectations for the Falcons. If Raheem Morris falls short again.
You're going to say Nancy Kerrigan again.
Yeah, Nancy Kerrigan, definitely. Brian Daboll's up there too, but I think if they draft a quarterback, they're going to give him some leeway. So I'm going to go with my number 1 is Mike Tomlin.
Okay.
We've talked about so much regular season success. And like you've said, no playoff wins since 2016. He's getting into Dallas Cowboys territory. Mike Tomlin, the Steelers hate to make coaching changes, but eventually he's got to win something.
So I would like to say that you're right, but I have no confidence in the Steelers even remotely thinking of moving on from Mike Tomlin. Like I said, he has 3 years left in his contract. Give him the edict of go find their next franchise quarterback or go win a playoff game in the next 2 years. And everywhere you go with Mike Tomlin, who would get a job tomorrow if he got fired, it's just defend Mike Tomlin. So I think there's pressure in terms of the media, right? Pressure in terms of the fans, but internally in that building, I don't think Mike Tomlin is anywhere close to being let go. All right, let's do quarterbacks under the most pressure this year. I'm actually going to go Brock Purdy. And hear me out on why. You have a Super Bowl core there that is getting towards the end of their run, but the window is still open. And there's going to be some retooling, even a little bit this offseason, and maybe some more retooling next offseason if you don't win the Super Bowl, even if you do, then, whenever you win a Super Bowl, right, guys have, let me go get the bag somewhere else. Let me get the most money. I got the ring, and then I'll throw up the deuces and peace out of town from the Bay Area. But Brock Purdy's going to get paid this offseason. And Brock Purdy's going to get paid a lot of money. I think we're looking anywhere between $52 and $60 million for Brock Purdy. And I think it's going to be closer to $60 million than it's going to be to $50 million. And we had Joe Montana on the show last week. And that's the most adamant and really most emotional I've heard Joe Montana in an interview, where he looked at me and he goes, the Niners have to pay Brock Purdy. And for all of his flaws, he's still a lot more accomplished, even in a bad year, than a lot of the other quarterbacks in the NFL that are making a lot more money than him. So they're going to pay Brock Purdy. And even though you pay Brock Purdy, he then has a leash in San Francisco because he's tied to the contract. But I think paying Brock Purdy an astronomical number puts even more eyeballs and more attention and more pressure on him. Pressure is very ambiguous, right? Pressure to win or pressure to lose a job. I think there's a lot of pressure for Brock Purdy to win. And this Niners group, they're starting to reach the end of the road, and then they're going to look different. So I look at this year with where that team is at, coming off the year that they just had, which was disappointing for them, and also the fact the quarterback is going to get pizzade this offseason. I believe there's a lot of pressure under Brock Purdy next year. Stu, who's your quarterback?
So I'll go with the quarterback that was paid last offseason, and that's Trevor Lawrence. We've seen good from him. We've seen bad from him. Last season was pretty bad. Now that he has a new coach, Liam Cohen, kind of coming in, and it's also a division that, okay, the Texans are definitely the best team in that division.
It's not an impossible division to win.
It's not impossible to win, and it's also not impossible to compete for a wild card. We saw that a couple years ago from them. I just think after next year, we're going to kind of know what Trevor Lawrence is in this league. Either he's going to be the franchise quarterback that a lot of us thought he was when he came out of Clemson, or he's just going to be, like a Derek Carr type, a guy that's a starter, but not a guy that can really lead your franchise.
Yeah, this is the last head coach that Trevor Lawrence gets in Jacksonville. If at the end of this experiment between Liam Cohen and Trevor Lawrence, you're saying, Liam Cohen's good, but he didn't get the quarterback play, then they're going to move on from Trevor and give Liam Cohen a new quarterback. If Trevor Lawrence doesn't play well this year, that could happen after this upcoming season, or maybe they'll both end up getting out of town together at the same time, depending on how many more years he's going to get. But this past year didn't go their way. Now you get a new coach in there. They gotta at least be a 9-win football team next year. If they're not a 9-win football team next year, I know they got some work to do, and Trevor doesn't play well with the new head coach in there, it's just I can't make any more excuses then for Trevor Lawrence. Sam, who's your quarterback?
I got to go Lamar Jackson, sir.
Really? Okay, why?
I mean, he's got his 2 MVPs, almost won his 3rd, and here he is. He cannot win the big playoff games. Like, at least Josh Allen, when they lose, he plays great, and they just still happen to lose.
Well, Lamar played great this year.
He did, but not really. He still had 2 picks in the game. He had 4 picks the entire season. He threw 2 picks in that game.
So even with the mistakes, though, he still at the end put the ball in Mark Andrews' hands. If Mark Andrews catches it, that game
is tied, and the Bills have the ball with a chance to take the...
But still, it's tied. Like, I can't crush... How I didn't crush James Franklin this year, and I love to crush James Franklin. But I didn't crush James Franklin after Penn State lost to Notre Dame. I can't crush Lamar after Lamar lost this game. Now, with that
I'm not crushing Lamar.
I'm not saying you are. I'm talking about this. But what I'm saying is, for Lamar Jackson, yes, there's pressure to win a Super Bowl. Like, there are a handful of quarterbacks that are Super Bowl or bust for the foreseeable future in the NFL. Patrick Mahomes, every year he plays Super Bowl or bust. Lamar Jackson, Super Bowl or bust. Josh Allen, Super Bowl or bust. Heck, I know they haven't made the playoffs the last 2 years in Joe Burrow, but with getting to the Super Bowl a few years ago, now they're Super Bowl or bust. And also, you know who's Super Bowl or bust too now? Not only we're crushing him next year if they don't win the Super Bowl, but Jalen Hurts. It's been to 2, won 1. Outplayed Mahomes in both of them. It's Super Bowl or bust. Like, I'm looking around the league. Is there another quarterback that's Brock Purdy is Super Bowl or bust? Jared Goff. So a little more than a handful is Super Bowl or bust. But outside of that, there's not that many other teams in the NFL where you look at them and go, oh, if they don't get to the Super Bowl or win the Super Bowl, then it's a horrible season. But yeah, no, there is pressure on Lamar Jackson. What differentiates, just wondering for you, Lamar to Josh? Is it just because Josh beats him in the postseason now twice?
That's part of it, but like I said, when Josh loses, he typically plays great. Mm-hmm. Lamar played well in this game, but not up to his standards. And historically, he hasn't played great. So oftentimes they've lost because of him. Yes, Mark Andrews dropped that ball. Lamar Jackson had 2 interceptions of the game and didn't play great throughout the entire game. He didn't play up to the standard that he was playing throughout the rest of the season. To anyone else, maybe he was playing very well, but not to himself. And so I feel like he just kind of misses something in the playoffs that he has to prove that he can do it. So that's it.
No,
Josh Allen has to prove nothing. Josh Allen has done everything he has to do.
Josh Allen still got to prove that.
The Bills have to prove something. But the thing is, like every time
that goes on the
lost,
quarterback, though. That goes on quarterback and coaches. Fair or not, that's what it goes on.
Sure, but have you looked at any of their losses to the Chiefs or whatever, or to the Bengals or whatever else it was, and been like, man, if only Josh Allen had done this. So I don't think he has that much. Yes, he has to win, but I don't think he has that much to prove. It's a different thing, I think.
Yeah, but you know how it is. We dumb this down until you win it. Like, there are people that, even after this loss to the Chiefs this year, we're still crushing Josh Allen. Oh, he can't win the big game. Just can't do it. That's like, now he wasn't Peyton Manning throwing 4 interceptions, 3 to Ty Law and 1 to Rodney Harrison. But yeah, no, I also think, you know how tough it is to play a full 60-minute game of football where you're just dynamite? Like, even look at Mahomes. In the Super Bowls that Mahomes won, it's not as if he's been great. They were down 10 in the first one to the Niners with 7.5 to go. The second one against the Niners, they were down 10. They were down 10 to the Eagles, and they made the plays in the second half. My just point with Lamar, where I just disagree with you, is he stunk in the AFC Championship game 2 years ago. This year, I thought he did good enough to win the game, and yes, was not perfect in the first half, was not good in the first half, right? Looked like AFC Championship game Lamar in the first half, but the second half, he did everything in his power to win the game, and Mark Andrews just got to catch the football. Anyway, who's a coach, who's a quarterback that's under the most pressure entering this season? My coach was Mike McDaniel. My quarterback was Brock Purdy. Stu, who's your coach again in quarterback, Stu?
Zach Taylor and Trevor Lawrence.
Zach Taylor and Trevor Lawrence, and Samter ends up going with Lamar Jackson, and your coach was Mike Tomlin. So that's some coaches and quarterbacks that we have under pressure going into this season. Kevin Durant is in the 30,000-point club. Does this make him a top 10 player ever? I'll give you my answer next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
This is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
All right, it is a Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. So, Stu, if I had to ask you how you view Kevin Durant's career, as now he becomes the 8th player in the history of the association to eclipse the 30,000-point mark. The others are Wilt Chamberlain, Dirk Nowitzki, the great Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Karl Malone, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and then LeBron James. So Kevin Durant right now is 8th on the all-time scoring list. How would you view Kevin Durant as a NBA player?
I would say a great player, definitely an amazing player, but someone who just, I'm always wanting more. Like I know he had the 2 finals MVPs, the 2 rings, all the scoring like you just mentioned, but there's always going to be that part of me that's like,
yeah, but
he could have been top 5, like one of the all-time greats. He's a great player, but there could have been more.
I think Kevin Durant and Aaron Rodgers are viewed very similarly. Where we look at Kevin Durant, we go top 20 player of all time. You look at Aaron Rodgers and you say top 15, top 10 quarterback of all time. You know, I know it's very easy to make the Basketball Hall of Fame, but the moment he's eligible, Kevin Durant is in, no conversation. The moment Aaron Rodgers is eligible for the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio, in without hesitation. However, even with all their greatness, they both will leave us wanting more. And for Aaron Rodgers, like, look at all the MVPs, but how early in his career he won a Super Bowl. He never won another one, didn't even get back to another championship game, another Super Bowl game, I should say. When we look at Kevin Durant, it's, yes, couldn't get the job done in OKC, goes to Golden State. I didn't even mind him going to Golden State, but he failed to embrace the villain role, even when he won 2 championships, 2 finals MVPs, because of how sensitive he is and how he reads everything that is written about him or everything that's tweeted about him. He's like, I got to go on my own and go win a championship on my own. And in Brooklyn, it did not work out. Heck, the most we've ever praised Durant in his career probably, he got praised more for losing to the Bucks when everyone was hurt than winning those 2 championships that he won in Golden State. But ultimately, he was the guy calling the shots in Brooklyn, and he enabled Kyrie Irving for too long, and the entire thing blew up in his face. And now, clearly, he's at the end of the road in Phoenix. He almost got traded at the deadline, and now he's still with the Suns. And here's a hot take. The Suns aren't winning a championship. I think what Barkley said was spot on of Durant. He's a bus rider, not a bus driver. And that sticks with him. So Aaron Rodgers could be a top 15, top 10 quarterback of all time. Kevin Durant could be a top 20, top 15 basketball player of all time. And those are incredible accomplishments. They have both, Durant and Rodgers, achieved unimaginable success. But it's still even crazy how they're both considered all-time greats. There are different fraternities and there are different sectors in the all-time great club. And even though they're both viewed as immortals, they're not viewed the same way for quarterbacks, right, as Aaron Rodgers, as Tom Brady, or even Patrick Mahomes or Joe Montana are viewed. You know, for Kevin Durant, he won't be viewed the same way we view Michael Jordan and LeBron James and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Kobe Bryant and Magic Johnson, just to name a few, rather than a few off the top of my head. So there are differences with them, and they're both great, yeah, but you wanted to see a little bit more out of him. So where do you put Durant in NBA history? He's not top 10. Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Kareem, Bill Russell, Magic Johnson, Wilt, Larry Bird, Timmy Duncan, Kobe, Shaquille O'Neal. Just for starters right there, those are 10 players. You can't tell me you rather have Kevin Durant than those 10 players. MJ, LeBron, Kareem, Russell, Magic, Wilt, Larry, Duncan, Kobe, Shaq. Also, Steph Curry. Steph Curry, I'd rather have his career than Kevin Durant's career. And I get it. When Kevin Durant was there, he won 2 championships and also won 2 finals MVPs over Steph. But Steph is the greatest three-point shooter we've ever seen. Some other names that you could debate. The Big O, Oscar Robertson. Hakeem Olajuwon. And you know what? I'm just looking at this list. LeBron James. These are the guys that have more points than Kevin Durant right now. 8 players in the history of the league. Durant's one of them. At least 30,000 points. Kevin Durant is behind on this list. Wilt, Dirk, MJ, Kobe, Karl Malone, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and LeBron James. I'd rather have the career of Dirk Nowitzki over Kevin Durant, just because I think Dirk, who's won an MVP just like Kevin Durant, but Dirk's championship will be remembered more fondly than the 2 championships that KD won. Fair or not, it's crazy because how many times do people say, KD needs to go win a ring on his own. Got to go win a ring on his own. If he just embraced being a villain, gave the middle finger, and kept on winning championship at Golden State, you could only hate something for so long before you just got to respect it. And I think him leaving and not being able to win on his own even added more fuel to the fire of people that kind of looked at Durant's championships in a cheap way. And I think the Karl Malone Durant conversation is fascinating. Because you look at Karl Malone, right? Durant's at his position is not viewed as a top 2 player at his position. At Karl Malone's position, he's either viewed as the first or the second best power forward of all time. And he won 2 league MVPs. Now, Malone doesn't have a championship. And that's why in probably a lot of these lists, Durant will be put ahead of Karl Malone. But it's just something to think about as well. So I think Durant, the highest you could probably go with him is probably like 12, 13. He's in that range of like 12 to 16. Because MJ, LeBron, Kareem, Bill Russell, MJ, LeBron, Kareem, Bill Russell, Magic Johnson, Wilt, Larry Bird, Duncan, Kobe, Shaq, and Steph. Those 11 have to be in front of Kevin Durant. And after that, there's some guys that could push him back even a few spots than that. But I think the highest you could go on Durant is 12, and probably the lowest you could go is 16 or 17. And he's probably like 14 or 15 I would say. And that's still incredible, right? You're 15 best player of all time. But it's wild to someone could be that great, and there's still going to be an incomplete feeling when you look back and you try to revere the career of one Kevin Durant. Zach Gelb here with you on the Infinity Sports Network. We'll take a timeout. We'll come on back with some questions. We'll give you some answers. We do this segment every Monday and Friday. We call it Onside Offside. Update time. Here's Zach.
Infinity Sports Network. Sports Flash.
Well, the Eagles were honored with a championship parade today through the streets of Philadelphia, adding a nice touch with the team heading to the Museum of Art, marching on the steps, taking a page from the iconic Rocky movie. Jalen Hurts can relate. He went from being benched in the national championship game to ultimately winning a Super Bowl. And head coach Nick Sirianni went from hot seat to hero. The Super Bowl MVP said none of this would have been possible without their head coach.
We couldn't do none of this without leadership. And that starts with Coach Nick Sirianni. I want to thank Coach for his intentionality, his fight, his passion.
The Dolphins have released some big names. Former Pro Bowl running back Raheem Mostert among the cuts, as well as Kendall Fuller and Durham Smythe. Giants great Eli Manning told CNBC he'd be interested in being part of a group to buy a stake in the Giants if available. The team has retained a banker to explore selling a 10% share. Very quiet night for sports, with the NBA being off for the All-Star break. The festivities in San Francisco begin tonight with a celebrity game, followed by another for the Rising Stars Challenge. I'm Rich Ackerman.
This is the Infinity Sports Network. Follow us on X. Our handle is INF Sports Network. That's INF Sports Network on X.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Zach's taking on the most polarizing issues in sports. Which side of the line of scrimmage will he end up on?
Offside. Defense number 69.
It's Onsides, Offsides with Zach Gelb.
Alrighty, Zach Gelb Show, Infinity Sports Network, onside, offside time. Stuart Kovacs, what do you got for me today, pal?
All right, Zach. So we got to catch up with Giants defensive star Kayvon Thibodeau on
F the Cowboys.
That's right. On Radio Row, along with Bobby Okereke. Now, while in New Orleans, Thibodeau, the former 5th overall pick, spoke with NJ.com about the Giants potentially picking up his 5th-year option, saying, quote, "I was a high draft pick. If they don't pick it up, I have the option to go to the market. Regardless of what they do contract-wise, I've got something to prove to myself," end of quote. So onsides, offsides, Thibodeau has been a disappointment thus far in the NFL.
So I got EJ and Perloff into the DraftKings party at the Super Bowl weekend. We were at the Lee Steinberg party, and then our friend to show, Josh Booty, was there. Josh Booty then took me to some mansion where there was 100 people there, and Faith Carter played, who's like a 24-year-old country singer. So it's a really cool event. But Josh goes, "Hey, if you want to get any of your guys into the DraftKings party, I have an in there tonight. Just get me their emails and their names and everything." So I got their email and names and everything. Perloff and EJ, threw them on the list. And I actually didn't make it to the party. It was also with Clutch Sports, too. I didn't make it to the party because Saturday we spent all day drinking. Then I went to the mansion party, drank more there, then went out for dinner, had a 9:15 dinner reservation. And by the time I was done with that, I was out of the hotel I was staying in from 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. Because in the morning, I took a walk, got some beignets, sat down. There was some not a Mardi Gras, but there was some sort of parade that was going on too, Super Bowl parade. So I didn't end up going to that party, but I saw EJ the next day. And EJ goes to me, "I went to the party. It was cool." And, right, sometimes these Super Bowl parties, if you don't have exclusive access, they stink. But then there's sometimes it's just a free-for-all where they give a certain amount of people in and it's access anywhere for everyone. That was one of these parties. You just had to be on the list. So I guess EJ saw Kayvon Thibodeau, and EJ wanted to have a little conversation with Kayvon Thibodeau. And from my understanding, what a source told me is that EJ went to be like, hey, Kayvon, nice to meet you. And Kayvon just walked right past him. Didn't even say a word to EJ Stewart. So Kayvon Thibodeau, big time EJ Stewart, but he didn't big time the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. He was actually very funny when we talked to him. He was fascinated by my love for blue cheese, and he also warned me not to eat the wings that they brought on set, but I had the wings and they were absolutely delicious. So Kayvon Thibodeau, he was an interesting guy. By the way, did you know Maggie got sick at the Super Bowl?
I heard about this, yes.
So she missed the show Friday because she got sick. I texted Maggie, and I'll answer your question in a second. But I saw a video that the Barstool guys, Jason Kelsey said on the New Heights podcast, and Stu probably knows this because he's a Swiftie, that all the Barstool guys got sick on the oysters that were in New Orleans. I guess there was a recall on some of the oysters. Now, I had a ton of oysters when I was in New Orleans. I didn't get sick at all, so I texted Maggie, is this what did you in? The oysters. Maybe she had some bad oysters. So she goes, in some ways, probably would have been easier. So I still have no clue what happened to Maggie. Supposedly she's doing better. She hosted the show this entire week. But for Maggie to miss a show on Friday, before the Super Bowl, knowing the work ethic of the great Maggie Gray, she really had to be down and out for the count. 1, 2, 3. And it was Dunzo season for Maggie Gray. I think I just broke the headphone system here by slamming the desk. Oh, there we go. We're back. All right, we're back. So anyway, that all brought up from the Kayvon Thibodeau conversation. So Thibodeau has been a disappointment so far. Yeah. Top 10 draft pick. Was supposed to be a dominant pass rusher in this league. And through the first 3 years of his career, he only has 21 sacks. 2022, 14 games played, 4 sacks. 2023, his best season, 17 games played, 11.5 sacks. And then this year was having a good season, then is out for the year, but had 12 games played, 5.5 sacks. So he's been fine, but we were told that Kayvon Thibodeau was going to be a great or a generational pass rusher, and he hasn't been that. So yeah, it's been disappointing so far on sides. And also, he big-time EJ.
Yeah.
So that's disappointing
Even
as
worse.
well.
Now, Hendon Hooker, he was a star at Tennessee before suffering a devastating injury right before the draft. Now, after sitting behind Jared Goff in Detroit for 2 years, it's pretty clear that he won't get a shot with the Lions. Now, yesterday, Rodney Harrison joined PFT Live and suggested that the Jets make a trade for Hooker, despite having former FSU quarterback Jordan Travis on the roster as well. Onsides, offsides, you believe Hooker and Travis could still be starters in the NFL?
They could start here and there. Do I think either going to be full-time starters? No, I don't. And I like both those guys in college, and then both got hurt. And then it just completely tanked both their draft stocks. So you believe Hooker and Travis could still be full-time starters in the NFL? I'm going to go offside on that.
Offside.
New Saints head coach Kellen Moore was introduced to the media yesterday, and among many topics, he discussed quarterback Derek Carr. While Moore praised Carr, he was also non-committal about whether he will be their quarterback in 2025. Now, Carr has 2 more years left on his deal, but the dead cap goes from $50 million this year to $28 million in 2026. So, onside, offsides, Derek Carr will be the Saints' starting quarterback in 2025.
I think so, and I think for one final season. I've been struggling with this one, Stu. Because I think some days, Derek Carr is gone. He's done with the Saints. And then other days, I think he's going to be back. When we had Cam Jordan on the show, I couldn't really get a read on it. And he's playing for the Saints, obviously, a longtime Saint. What does your gut tell you when it comes to Derek Carr? Because I will flip-flop on this one until we get a decision here.
I think because the number's so high, he'll be there 1 more year.
Yeah,
and then next year,
what else are you doing? You know, if there was an option, like they're not signing Sam Darnold, right? You know, do you want Russell Wilson? Do you want
Kenny Pickett?
Oh, jeez. All right, Chris in California. Like, there's not a great option out there, and they're probably not going to get a quarterback in the draft. So I do think it would behoove them, even though it's not something you would love to do, because of what the dead cap is. Just you run him back out there for 1 more year, and then a year from now, that's when you move on from Derek Carr when he has 1 year left on the contract. So Derek Carr will be the Saints starter in 2025. Begrudgingly, I will go on sides.
All right, Tyreek Hill made some waves after his emotional comments after the season, but it seemed to walk them back and even apologize to the Dolphins. Now, however, Hill and U.S. Olympic sprinter Noah Lyles announced that they will finally race each other this summer after years of trash talk. So onsides, offsides, you're okay with Hill racing Lyles before the season begins?
Yeah, I am, because I'm not one of these people going to be like, oh, what happens if he gets injured? Yeah, if he does, that sucks. It's horrible. But am I going to care about this race? I'll probably watch it whenever it surfaces on the internet. But if they do some live event where they're streaming it, am I going to tune in? Absolutely not. I'll just catch the Spark Notes version afterwards. So you're okay with Hill racing Lyles before the season begins? Sure. Onsides.
Now, the Yankees have a North American sports record 27 titles, but they also have an odd no facial hair except a mustache rule, and that's ever since George Steinbrenner brought the team in the 70s. Now, this week...
Tradition.
This week, new offseason acquisition Devin Williams reignited a controversy when arriving at spring training with a full beard, but was clean-shaven yesterday. And in response, former Yankee Jabba Chamberlain admitted that he knows players who wanted to join the team but didn't because they didn't want to shave. So onsides, offsides, the Yankees should do away with facial hair rule this year.
Yeah, what is this, 1973? Does it matter? You know what? Guys, I'm going to have a no facial hair policy on this show. Stu?
Oh, no.
Cut the beard.
Yikes.
Samter, cut the beard. Imagine if we did that.
That would be problematic.
I think it's stupid. All right, back in the day, fine. But now, what's the purpose of this? So the Yankees should do away with the facial hair rule? Absolutely, they should. Onsides. But Stu, I want to trim before you get back in the studio Monday. Tell Angie you got to trim the beard tonight. No more beard.
Ironically, I do have a haircut tomorrow, so I believe it will be trimmed on Monday.
Samter, by the way, not that you look old, but when you shave your beard that one time you did and you came in clean shaven, you look 10 years younger. You looked like you were 26. Are we getting a shave suit? Yeah, right? You shaved it when your daughter was born, right?
Yeah, I shave it every now and again. In the winter when it's really cold out, like it has been over the past month and a half, the beard serves as a natural insulation.
It's always a sneak attack with you.
Yeah, once it warms up, it's gone.
It's really a sneak attack. One day you're just going to walk in and we're going to be like, who the heck is this new producer around here on the Infinity Sports Network?
I'm very sure people don't see me anyway.
No, we all see you. You have a big presence when you walk into a room.
I am loud.
There's no doubt about that. All righty, last one. What do we got?
All right, Shohei Ohtani is a champion, and the reigning NL MVP and the Dodgers got some good news as the league officially designated him as a two-way player for 2025. Ohtani, whose career high is 166 innings pitched, had his second Tommy John surgery in September of 2023 after pitching 132 innings that year, and he is expected to get back on the mound this season. So onsides, offsides, the Dodgers should keep Ohtani under 100 innings this season.
Yeah, I think so, because the next arm injury that he has, I think that's it for the Shohei Ohtani pitching experiment. And he's an elite pitcher when he's able to do so on the mound, and we know what he is at the dish. But eventually they're just going to say become a full-time hitter. Or, you know what could happen? I know it's a different kind of philosophy, but we've seen John Smoltz before, starter, closer. I'm not saying that you make him your closer, but maybe you just have him coming out of the pen. Now, it's a different mentality and it's a different mindset, but I wonder if that's something the Dodgers would consider down the road. They're going to try the starting experiment once again, but I would limit his innings. Because if you can get him in the postseason, at the dish, on the mound, that's when it's really worth it. But also, the Dodgers rotation is now so deep, you could find a way with how many horses you got in that rotation to be very careful and very meticulous with the way that you manage Shohei Ohtani. So the Dodgers should keep. I'm not usually an inning limit guy. That's a tongue twister. Say that 10 times fast. I'm not usually an inning limit guy. But with that being said, I think everything's different for Shohei Ohtani. So the Dodgers should keep Ohtani under 100 innings this season. Absolutely, I will go on sides. First 2 hours in the books on this Friday. Man, this show is flying by. When we come on back, yesterday, we played you audio from CeeDee Lamb. And CeeDee Lamb admitted that the Eagles fan base is more passionate than the Cowboys fan base. So when we come on back, Stu and I are going to do a little draft here. We're going to just pick the 10 most passionate fan bases in the NFL. And we'll just go 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 until we get to 10. So it won't even be a snake, Stu. But I just want to see how we order, and me giving a pick, then you giving a pick, the top 10 most passionate fan bases in the National Football League. Zach Gelb Show, Infinity Sports Network. You can always give us a call, 855-212-4227, 855-212-4227. You can always follow me, Twitter, Instagram, at Zach Gelb, ZACHGELB.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. 15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Hour number 3 of our radio program, Zach Gelb Show, Infinity Sports Network, a Football Friday, even though we don't have any football to preview, but we still got football to talk about. So I want to play you this audio. This was via Katie Feeney's Instagram, and she had on Cowboys star wide receiver, CeeDee Lamb. And CeeDee Lamb was asked, who has the more passionate fan base? Are it your drama Dallas choking Cowboys? Is it them, or is it the Philadelphia Eagles? Now, you would think, right, CeeDee Lamb plays for the Cowboys, even though it would be a lie. He would say, yeah, it's the Dallas Cowboys. I play for the Cowboys, love Cowboys fans. Oh, Cowboys fans more passionate than Eagles fans. But CeeDee Lamb actually told the truth. This is what it sounded like.
Who has a more passionate fan base, the Eagles or the Cowboys?
Eagles.
Eagles?
They're crazy. Our Cowboys, our fans are deep, but they not. I don't want to say nothing crazy, but the Eagles got it.
So there you go. That is CeeDee Lamb basically just annoying a lot of Cowboys fans and giving the Eagles another victory. Real quickly, let's hear some sounds from the parade, and then we'll have a little conversation when we get into the 10 most passionate fan bases in the NFL. Here was Landon Dickerson cursing when he was interviewed by Fox 29.
Landon
Dickerson.
All I got to say is go Bird! Oh, we apologize for that.
We apologize.
Here is Quinyon Mitchell, absolutely lost in the sauce at the parade, courtesy of Fox 29.
I love that they're just hopping off the buses.
Hey, a message.
What?
To the people of Philadelphia,
And
your
Devontae.
love message.
Go! Eagles! Let's go.
Oh, wow. Quinyon Mitchell and Avonte Maddox are feeling it right now.
And here is A.J. Brown. He had a little message for all of his haters.
They said I was a diva. They said all I care about was stats. If you're going to get all those things wrong about me, but one thing you can get right, I'm a champion.
So there you go. That's that. I came across, so when I was in Philadelphia, I lived right next to the art museum, or pretty close to the art museum. And I forgot I did this, but I did man on the street interviews for the Eagles parade. And I went back and found the audio. It was about like 10 minutes, 12 minutes of audio. The things that were said on there, how many bleeps, just how many people were cursing, going nuts, freaking out, and how many F the Cowboys I got, reactions to when the Hail Mary by Tom Brady was incomplete, people talking about BDN, which is Nick Foles. If you know, you know. A guy with, I talked about this earlier in the week, a guy had a giant poster of a private part wrapped in condoms to give to Nick Foles. And you had like girls saying wild stuff as well. I found the audio last night. It was just 10 to 12 minutes of jackassery in Philadelphia. That's what it was. But I mean that in a good way. It was funny stuff. So we played you that audio of CeeDee Lamb yesterday. Now let's go back to it today. And Stu, we'll do a little draft here. The 10 most passionate fan bases in the NFL. Do we have like NFL music or something like that fired up? All righty. I'll go first here. The most passionate fan base in the NFL. I've been to Buffalo. As much as I love going to games in Philadelphia, and the Eagles really are Philadelphia's community, but the Bills, like people would go to Philadelphia just to go to Philadelphia. I don't know how many people just go to Buffalo unless if you're just going to a Bills game. And it's all about wings, family, football, and then also a ton of booze. That's Buffalo. And those Bills fans, you got that guy Pinto Ron, right? Who has like ketchup and mustard sprayed on his face. You have a file cabinet pizza guy. You got people jumping through tables. I've never seen anything like Bills Mafia. I'll never forget, I was in high school and I'm wearing a Tom Brady jersey. My cousin's wearing a Gronk jersey. He went to college at SUNY Buffalo. And every Bills fan, it was almost like a cult that we walked past. They were like, Brady's a lady! Brady's a lady! And then we were in the upper deck 50-yard line. My uncle loves sitting upper deck 50-yard line. And the Bills scored a touchdown. And somebody's grandmother, I kid you not, she was 75. Very saggy. 75. And the Bills scored a touchdown. And you would have thought she was on Bourbon Street during Mardi Gras, doing what people do at Mardi Gras when they want beads. She was flashing the whole section. Upper deck, 50-yard line. This lady's 70, 75. Right? She was not a young woman. And she was flashing everyone after the Bills scored a touchdown. And it was in a blowout. They were losing the game, getting crushed by the New England Patriots. So I've never seen anything like Bills Mafia. I think the Bills are the most passionate, have the most passionate fans in the NFL. Stu, who's your first pick?
All right, I would agree with the Bills take there. I'll go Eagles. I've noticed might be a little bit revisionist history. We see it more when they're in the Super Bowl and when they have really good teams. They usually have good teams, but especially the last 4 years. I just think Eagles fans are a different breed. Philadelphia fans in general, not just Eagles, just the Philadelphia sports fan. So I just think you see the passion when they won this game last week. For me, they are right up there with the Bills in terms of just having that passion for their teams.
So I said this to Spike when Spike got here, when he worked with us for 3 years when he was our boss? I think it was 3 years. He goes to me, you lived in both cities. What's the biggest difference between New York and Philadelphia fans? And I go, well, like New York, when it's a big game, I think there's nothing like a big game in New York. You know, at Yankee Stadium, Citi Field, Madison Square Garden, it's a big time crowd, big event crowd. The passion's unbelievable. But the biggest difference I thought with New York compared to Philadelphia are two things. There's only 4 teams in Philadelphia. In New York, you got 3 hockey teams. You got 2 baseball teams. You got 2 basketball teams, right? You got 2 football teams. So not the entire city is always behind the team. Where in Philadelphia, Eagles in a big game, entire city is going crazy. Phillies, Flyers, Sixers, all that stuff. And then also, I think the biggest difference, I don't want this to sound sexist, right? Because sports, right? Macho man, all that stuff. When the Eagles are in a big game, it doesn't matter what sex you are. Everyone in the city's wearing Eagles gear. Like, if the Yankees are in the World Series, I don't know if everyone's wearing Yankees gear. I've been to Philadelphia for many big games, divisional round, championship games. You would think as if all you could wear is Eagles gear. And people, I'm not even talking about just when you're at the stadium. 2 years ago when they got to the Super Bowl, I was going to all those games, and I would meet my friends for lunch before the game and see some college buddies of mine. And we would be 15 miles, 20 miles away from the stadium until everyone's in Eagles gear. So that's what I think some of the differences are with New York and Philadelphia. So Bills and Eagles off the board. My next fan base, I'm going to actually go, so it's the most passionate fan bases. I'm actually going to go with the Raiders. Are you surprised to take the Raiders this soon, Stu?
A little surprised. I thought I had them a little high at 4 or 5, but yes, I'm shocked you took them here.
So I thought of some other teams, like Steelers, Packers, 2 of the best fan bases in sports. You know, I also thought about the Cleveland Browns, right? Some of those other teams. But I got to go with the Raiders because the way the fans dress, you would think it's Halloween every time. And, right, they could play in Oakland. They could play in Las Vegas. They could play in LA. Like, it don't matter. Wherever they go, those fans pop up. And there could be Super Bowls where they're not even close to being in. I know the NFL draft's a bigger deal because that's always a big deal for the Raiders. But every NFL event you go, you always have one guy dressed up crazy screaming, Raiders. So when you go and dress up like that, I think you're one of the most passionate fan base in sports. and I never get this right. I say this so many times and you know exactly what I'm going to ask you, right, Stu? When I was at the draft.
The two Raider fans.
The Gorilla guy.
Rilla
Gorilla.
Yeah.
And then also something Wayne. Violator or something like that. I don't even know. But I met those two guys, and they were like, it's when we were CBS Sports Radio. They go, we love CBS Sports Radio. We love, because it was right after my Max Crosby interview Darren Waller interview that got picked up by Schefter. They go, and you always defend the Raiders. And I'm like, I defend the Raiders? Really? I don't know about that stuff. But those two guys, almost like they welcomed our network into Raiders fandom. And the only one at the network that is a Raiders fan is Stu Kovacs. So Bills, Eagles, Raiders off the board. Where do you go with next?
I will go with the Packers. That's my next pick. I just think the fact that, one, they're very passionate in the game, obviously the Cheeseheads and the Lambeau Leap, all of that. And just the fact that they're also the only one that actually owns the team, kind of plays in part of it too. But I just think that aura of Lambeau Field and the fans that are there, the Cheeseheads being there, I think they deserve to be near the top of the list here.
My next team, I'm going with the Steelers. And the reason why I'm taking the Steelers is not only do you have the iconic terrible towel and you got a great football city in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, but I've never seen a fan base travel like Steelers fans. I don't think it's crazy to claim that if we did best traveling fan bases for the NFL, the Steelers would be number one. So Bills 1, Eagles 2, Raiders 3, Packers 4, Steelers 5. Who do you go with 6?
So this is a fan base that I don't see a lot of around here, but if you go to play at that place, there are a ton of them, and they are loud. And
I know who you're going with.
That is the Seattle Seahawks fans. The 12th man, I mean, that just speaks for itself. I think their fans are very passionate. They're not like a national fan base. Like, I think all of these other teams we've mentioned so far have a big national presence, but the Seahawks don't really have that. But, just the 12th man at that stadium, they're pretty passionate.
All righty, the next team I'm going to mention, they remind me like Raiders fans because they're wacky, and that's the Niner gang. I'm going with the San Francisco 49ers. Bang, bang, Niner gang. I will take the San Francisco 49ers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams off the board. Bills, Eagles, Raiders, Packers, Steelers, Seahawks, 49ers. Who's your next team?
My next pick are Browns fans, and I think they've been unfairly treated the last 20, 25 years. Plus, they've had a team
been abused.
Yeah, it's been terrible, but they always stand behind their team I would say almost more than any other fan base, even in the bad times. So I think the Browns fans deserve a shout out here.
Here we go, Brownies. Here we go. Hoo, hoo. And I said, here we go again. It's the Cleveland Browns, and it's 1st and 10. All righty. We got 2 more picks left?
Yep, 1 each.
I like your Seahawks pick. I thought they'd be a little bit lower. I think there's 2 more fan bases we have to hit. Or actually, I think there's 3 under consideration. Pick 2. I'm just going to give you the fan base here that I think. And I think this is an underrated fan base. Their place is incredibly loud, and they have an iconic chant. It's the Minnesota Vikings with the skull. Give me the Minnesota Vikings. And they're also a tortured fan base, too. When they lose, it's not like they just lose. They lose in the most terrible, awful ways possible. So I'll take Minnesota.
Okay, so I know this team has won a lot lately, but
let me ask you this. I think there's 2 teams that are available here for 1 spot. Are either of those teams in your mind the Bears or the Chiefs?
Yes.
Okay. Continue. So I know where you're going because you preface by saying, I know this team has won a lot lately.
Yeah, it's not the Bears. Yes, the Chiefs fans, I think, are very passionate. Arrowhead is rocking pretty much every game. Even when, and I've watched a lot of Chiefs games, even when they were down, 10, 15 years ago, they were still very, very loud. So I think the Chiefs should be on this list for sure.
So our top 10 most passionate fan bases in the NFL. Bills, Eagles, Raiders, Packers, Steelers, Seahawks, 49ers, Browns, Vikings, Chiefs. Is there anyone that got screwed out of the top 10?
Other teams I had under consideration were Bears, Broncos, Patriots.
Ooh. The Broncos. What, because Gallo's crazy? Because
No,
Gallo's nuts?
no. I think they have a good fan base.
No, they do. I'm just teasing. They have the dumbest chant, though.
Oh, the incomplete.
Incomplete?
Yeah.
I never knew what
Overrated.
they were saying for years.
Me neither. I was with you. For their years on TV, I'm like, what are they chanting?
Yeah. I go, what are they chanting? And I thought it was maybe something with the clock or something else, some other tradition. And then I realized anytime there's an incomplete pass, they go, incomplete. Just stupid. Cowboys fans, should they have been on this list?
They have a lot of fans. I don't know if they're...
A lot of cockroaches.
They're passionate. I don't know. I just don't... Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, when it's like running with the Bulls, pretty much, when they open up that state. You ever see those videos?
I do, yeah.
That's just mayhem to me. And you put Patriot fans in there. You do.
I think so.
Yeah, and they're also hated, too. And they stuck by that team for years when that team just sucked. And they had the greatest 20-year run in the history of the league.
Maybe Saints fans, too?
Saints, very good people. Very good fans. I'll give you one more. I think, actually, this is the most egregious one that we missed. I just want to double check here to make sure that I'm not leaving anyone off the list here. Yeah. I got two fan bases that we did wrong. Did really wrong. The Jacksonville Jaguars and the Arizona Cardinals. Right? Two great fan bases. Let me tell you.
I was wondering where you're going with this. I'm like, did I miss a team here?
It sucks what happened to Commanders fans, too, when they were the Redskins, right? Because that used to be one of the most passionate fan base, and then Daniel Snyder just, until this year, right, sucked all the life out of that franchise. I feel good, though, about our list. Bills 1, Eagles 2, Raiders 3, Packers 4, Steelers 5, Seahawks 6, 49ers 7, Browns 8, Vikings 9, Chiefs 10. All righty, Zach Gelb Show, Infinity Sports Network. Who are some of the more passionate fans in the NFL? If you want to chime in on a team, feel free, 855-212-4227. Always on Twitter and Instagram, at Zach Gelb, Z-A-C-H-G-E-L-B, Z-A-C-H-G-E-L-B. All righty, we will come on back when we do return. Quarterback predictions 1.0. We will take a glance at some quarterbacks that are going to be available this offseason or could be available this offseason. And I will give you my first round of predictions on where those quarterbacks will land. We'll do that when we come on back.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
All righty, Zach Gelb Show, Infinity Sports Network. So, anything I've said about quarterback predictions in the past, crumble it up, open up your window, and throw that piece of paper, throw that prediction out the window. I thought about this long and hard early this morning, and I'm ready to do QB predictions 1.0. We will eventually have a 2.0, maybe a 3.0, potentially a 4.0, and I think after 4 times, we probably will have our answers. And I don't know how much it will change from this week to next week, but we're not that far away from the new league year opening up, coming up in mid-March, where you have the legal tampering window, and then the league year does start 2 days after that. And the combine's right around the corner, too. But anyway, without further ado, I'm not talking about Freddie Adu. We will get to our quarterback predictions for the 2025 offseason, version 1.0. Stu will fire off the name with the big voiceover guy, and I'll tell you where I have that quarterback going to this offseason.
Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, we start with a bang. Ayahuasca Aaron, I think, is going to be going to one of the more passionate fan bases in the NFL. And I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are in a situation where they're once again looking for a stopgap guy. I don't think they're bringing back Justin Fields. I don't think they're bringing back Russell Wilson. And Mike Tomlin needs to win a playoff game. Aaron Rodgers played well at the end of the season. And I still think he could go play another year, even though he's still not the great Aaron Rodgers. They need to improve that offensive line because that line right now is stinky. You do got George Pickens. You got Pat Freiermuth as well. But I could see Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers linking up with Aaron Rodgers and Mike Tomlin. And if people go, oh, Tomlin's not going to want to deal with the BS of Aaron Rodgers, he dealt with Antonio Brown for a long time. And also, I still rather have Aaron Rodgers over Russell Wilson. And I'd be more curious to see Justin Fields, even though I think Aaron Rodgers is better, just because he's younger. And I'd like to see what Justin Fields could do over the course of the season. But if they bench Justin Fields last year, I don't think they're then going to make him the starting quarterback in 2025. So I'm going to say Aaron Rodgers to the Pittsburgh Steelers Here we go.
Kirk Cousins.
So I think he'll eventually get released. He's owed a lot of money, $100 million guaranteed. So I think Kirk Cousins becomes last year's version of Russell Wilson this year, where it's going to be on a cheap one-year deal. And I look at the Cleveland Browns, whether they part ways with Deshaun Watson or not, they have to pay Deshaun Watson his fully guaranteed contract. Deshaun Watson's never going to start a game again, nor should he, for the Cleveland Browns. I think Kirk Cousins, with the familiarity with Kevin Stefanski, is going to wind up with the Cleveland Browns, and you'll see Kirk Cousins in the dog pound. So Aaron Rodgers to the Steelers, Kirk Cousins to the Browns. Next one.
Matthew Stafford.
There's a lot of smoke out there with Matthew Stafford. And I'm trying to vet what is true, what is false, and then what's meet in the middle just because this is negotiation bullcrap. I still don't get why the Los Angeles Rams would move off of Matthew Stafford. All right, he's getting up there in age. Still a good quarterback. What are you doing if you get rid of Matthew Stafford? I'm not getting rid of Matthew Stafford for Russell Wilson. I'm not getting rid of Matthew Stafford for Kirk Cousins. I'm not getting rid of Matthew Stafford for Aaron Rodgers. Does Sean McVay love Sam Darnold that much that he's going to give Sam Darnold a 3 or 4 year contract and then say, I could win with Sam Darnold and we'll just kick Matthew Stafford to the curb who you won a Super Bowl with? Yeah, I don't think so. Until I'm proven wrong here, I am going to go down swinging and holding on to that claim that this is a bunch of negotiation bullcrap, even though his wife is now entering the conversation where she's going on our Instagram and saying, you know, this picture of us is blurry just like our future. And then Kelly Stafford talking all big on her podcast about how her husband needs more respect and all that stuff. The Rams love drama. The Rams are really a bunch of drama whores. Aaron Donald before that Super Bowl, this is going to be like Rodney Harrison said this was going to be his last game. That's what he told him. Sean McVay, Mr. GQ, is going to be retiring for years. Matthew Stafford going to be retiring for years. There's always a lot of drama with the Rams and not a lot of action. Maybe I'm wrong here, but I still see Matthew Stafford coming on back with the Rams next year.
Russell Wilson.
This was the most difficult one. Because once I say Russell Wilson is not going back to the Steelers, then where does he land? And yesterday I was like, okay, I could see a reunion with Russ and Pete Carroll with the Las Vegas Raiders. But then I thought more about the GM, John Spytek, and then Pete Carroll. And I said to myself, I think Pete is going to want a quarterback that provides a little bit more stability because Pete doesn't have a long window here. He got a 3-year contract. And if you go to Russ, you could be moving on from Russ after 1 year, even though you guys have a long relationship with a bad ending. But they're now back in the good graces of one another. But when I went to go put Russell Wilson to the Raiders, just something in my head went off where I go, I think they're going to try to look for a longer-term plan, even if it's not this great name. So then I go, okay, if I'm not having Russ go to the Raiders, if I don't have Russ going to the Steelers, if I don't have Russ going to the Browns, if I don't have Russ going to the Rams, where could he go? Thought about the Jets, thought about the Giants, right? He's been rumored the last few years to be interested in at least going to New York and playing for the Giants. Heck, even last year, before signing with the Steelers, he did take a visit. I think his first visit was with the Giants. But as I sit here now, I think Russell Wilson, and this is an underrated part about it, Russ, we all know, has an ego. But Russ last year, if you recall, didn't play a full season, hurt early on. Justin Fields then got benched, and they went with Russ the rest of the way. So I think Russ will be fine going somewhere, even though it isn't his preference. I think Russ will be fine going somewhere where he may not be the starter week 1, but you don't believe in the quarterback a lot, and then you could eventually usurp him, and it may be in week 5 or 6. And that's why I'm going to put Russell Wilson on the Indianapolis Colts. They need another name. They need a veteran in there. Anthony Richardson, you can't tell me they even really believe in him because they benched him this year when he tapped out. I know they went back to him, but does anyone actually think that Anthony Richardson is that dude? So if they benched Anthony Richardson for Joe Flacco, and I know Joe played well with the Browns, but still, Joe Flacco, like old man Flacco now, that's who you bench the guy that was supposed to be your franchise quarterback for. I do think that Russell Wilson maybe could go to Indianapolis and beat out Anthony Richardson, but I think he'll hitch his wagon to Anthony Richardson's just never really all that consistent. So let him play the first 4, 5, 6 weeks of the season, and you know the leash is going to be very short because they benched him last year. And then just Joe Flacco didn't have anything left in the tank, and he didn't have that magic that he did find in Cleveland. So I could see Russell Wilson with Michael Pittman, Pierce, and Jonathan Taylor, and then not being intimidated by Anthony Richardson, saying, I could eventually get on the field there. So I'm going to say Russell Wilson on a cheap deal to the Indianapolis Colts.
Justin Fields.
This one was tricky. I'm going to say Justin Fields winds up in the Big Apple, and he's going to be quarterbacking the Jets, Jets. Ohio State guy. You know, he had that relationship with Garrett Wilson. I look at Justin Fields. The Jets right now, in all likelihood, not going to get a quarterback in the draft unless if they do move up, and I still think that's unlikely because I think either the Browns or Tennessee will take a quarterback, and then the Giants will take a quarterback as well. You already said goodbye to Aaron Rodgers. I don't think you're bringing in an older quarterback like a Kirk Cousins. You know, Russell Wilson could be in play. I don't buy that Matthew Stafford is really going to be on the move. I think the Jets could be interested in Sam Darnold, but there's no way Sam Darnold's going to be interested in the Jets, even though this is a new regime with Muji and also with Aaron Glenn coming in. But I could see the Jets taking a roll of the dice on Justin Fields, where you do have Tyrod Taylor in place, who's not great, right? He's not good, but he's a respectable name, right? Backup quarterback in this league. And maybe you have another punchier at the quarterback position where you do have a competition, Taylor and Justin Fields. And you say Justin Fields, right? You're a young quarterback. It didn't work out for you in Chicago. You did some good things with the Steelers. They eventually went to their veteran in Russell Wilson. Let's see what you could do here. Let's see if you could reach our, the potential here in New York. You know, what Sam Darnold eventually did years later, even though it was a disaster in New York with Minnesota, maybe you could end up doing that with Gang Green in New York with the New York Jets. So I'm going to say Justin Fields to the New York Jets.
Sam Darnold.
And then Stu, you convinced me yesterday. I'm saying Sam Darnold winds up with the Raiders. And the biggest reason why is, yes, I think SpyTech would prefer to get Shedeur Sanders in the draft. I don't know if he's willing to give up the capital to go get Shedeur Sanders. And I know Brady would love Shedeur Sanders. Brady's a big fan of Shedeur, and the two of them are very close. But with that being said, I think the Raiders stay put at 6. They get the best player available. Maybe they even move back to get more capital because the Raiders could use some capital. But I think the Raiders take the best player available at 6. I don't think Shedeur nor Cam are going to be available there. And I think really the Raiders are already going to make their decision before that because Pete's on a 3-year timeline. He's got 3 years on that contract. Now, he can go more than that. But you got a 3-year contract. I think Sam Darnold could get a 3-year contract, maybe even less. But I could see Sam getting a 3-year deal, and you link up Sam Darnold and Pete Carroll. You take a playmaker at 6. You got Brock Bowers. You know, if you keep Max Crosby, you got him on the other side of the ball. And even though it's not this great group in Las Vegas, and I don't think Sam Darnold's this great quarterback, but at least you have an answer at the quarterback position where Pete knows who his guy is going to be for his tenure with the Silver and Black. So those are the predictions, right? We don't got any more right there. I don't think there's any more names there. Aaron Rodgers to the Steelers, Kirk Cousins to the Browns, Matthew Stafford to the Rams, Russell Wilson to the Colts, Justin Fields to the Jets, and then Sammy Slingin' Donald to the Las Vegas Raiders. Zach Gelb Show, Infinity Sports Network, 855-212-4227, 855-212-4227. Let's go to Rob in Connecticut. Rob, always great to hear your voice. What's going on, my friend?
What's going on, Zach? You already know that the Bills Mafia is number one as far as having the craziest fans. We're awesome. We're awesome. But you know what? You left out the Ravens. I think the Ravens fans are pretty nutty up that way too, you know.
Good fan base. No, definitely a top 15. Definitely a top 15 fan base. Yeah. I remember when I was at that terrible wild card game for the Patriots when the Ravens kicked their ass. They had a bunch of buses of fans coming on in. They're good, just to me not a top 10 fan base. But what else you got?
One other thing, as far as the draft, I think Travis Hunter's going to go 1, and then it's going to be Ward, and then it's going to be Sanders.
So I agree with you in terms of, or that's the way I hope it kind of goes. I hope Abdul Carter is not in the first 3 picks because I want Abdul Carter to go to the Patriots.
Exactly.
I am not sold yet on which team is going to pass on the quarterback. That's my dilemma. I don't know if it's going to be Tennessee or if it's going to be Cleveland, but I do agree with you that one of the first 2 picks will be Cam Ward. I think Cam Ward is the first quarterback off the board. And then I'm going to lean that Travis Hunter is the first non-quarterback taken. And then I do believe whether it's Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, whoever doesn't go in the top 2, the Giants will then gobble them up at 3, and then the Patriots sit there at 4. And if it's Abdul Carter going in the top 3, then they take Travis Hunter. If it's Travis Hunter going in the top 3, then I think they end up taking Abdul Carter. That's what I think we're looking at. Those 4 players, I don't know the order, but appreciate the phone call, Rob, and enjoy the weekend and happy Friday to you. But I think those are going to be the first 4 players in some order taken in the draft. And if I had to pick right now, I would agree with Rob right now. I would say, but he said Cam Ward to the Titans, or did he say Travis? He said Cam Ward, right? So I'll say Cam Ward to Tennessee, Travis Hunter to the Browns. I would then say Shedeur Sanders to the Shedeur Sanders, to the New York Giants, and then in at number 4, Abdul Carter with the Patriots. And you know what? If Abdul Carter gets drafted by the Patriots, I think that would be the first Penn State jersey I would buy. I don't think I've ever owned, not an Abdul Carter Penn State jersey.
I was going to say, a Penn State, wow.
I don't think I've ever owned a jersey of a Penn State player. I love LeVar Arrington, and I like Micah Parsons, but I don't think I've ever owned a jersey of a Penn State player. But after our feud and our beef, which, it's his feud and beef, not mine, and now he's claiming it was CTE, with Warren Sapp storming off set with us after I praised Abdul Carter, I could use myself an Abdul Carter Patriot jersey. I bought a Patriot jersey a few weeks back, a new one. No, it's kind of an old one. I got a red Mike Vrabel jersey, but when it came in the mail, I didn't like the way that it looked. Now, jerseys are very hit or miss right now. I think sometimes when you get them from China, they're actually better, if I'm being honest. China. But when we take a look at this Mike Vrabel jersey I got from the NFL, right? That's where I bought it from. The name Vrabel, Stu, was written very, very small.
Yeah.
And I know I'm a big guy, but even, right, if it was a smaller person, it was very small, the lettering. It just didn't match up with the number. And I've never been able to say this, so I could say this now. The jersey was even a little big, too. Now, I like a bigger football jersey because if you go to a game outdoors and you got to, pack it in with all the sweatshirts and the coat, you want to then throw the jersey on top of yourself. So I don't mind a little bit of a bigger football jersey, but the jersey was a tad big, and then the lettering on the name Vrabel, on the nameplate, was just too small that I actually returned it and got my money back, which I was annoyed because I love Mike Vrabel. So I'm in the market for a new jersey. I have a Brady jersey. I got an Andre Tippett jersey. I have a Matthew Slater jersey. I have a Gronk jersey somewhere. I have a Brewski jersey somewhere. But when my parents moved, it was in my childhood room, those jerseys, those 2. So they're in a box somewhere. And I got a Willie McGinnis jersey. But I think that jersey's now too big because I used to be very fat. And, I lost all this weight, so that jersey's like a dress on me now. But, yeah, I'm in the market for a new jersey. I was going to go with the new coach in Vrabel, but then I just didn't like the way that it looked. We have a jersey problem now. Like, remember when you were growing up, you just go to Modell's, right?
Yeah, Modell's, Foot Locker.
And they had all the jerseys.
They had all
it didn't matter if you had a New York Foot Locker or Modell's. They had all the jerseys.
Big name players. They'd have, Charles Woodson Raider jerseys, yeah.
And then there was that website in China, EC Seller, which was great. You had a $25 jersey. I think there's a DH Gate or something now.
There is a DH Gate that I am well aware of.
But here's so DH Gate I usually like. Then I ordered a Pete Alonso DH Gate jersey. It is crumbled up in some box. It looked like a rag. It was the worst jersey I've ever got. So it's hit or miss when it comes from China. But when it hits, I think they're the best. Some of my best jerseys are from China, and you have no clue. So I'm in the market for New Jersey. Abdul Carter, Patriot, get it right away. That's how you know my fandom is really falling. I get excited over a potential draft picks jersey. That's how you know that Zach Gelb, who was in the penthouse for many years, is now in the outhouse. I don't like being in the outhouse, if I'm being honest with you. I like the better Stu being in the penthouse. Not that you've ever experienced.
I was going to say, I don't know what that's like, so.
Yeah. And we have a lot in common, minus the rings. But, if you just take that aside, right now our football teams both have a lot in common. Oh, actually, I don't even know.
At least you have a quarterback.
Yeah, I was going to say, at least I do have a quarterback. That is true. And a coach that isn't about to go get his AARP card and go to the early bird special. All righty, Zach Gelb Show, Infinity Sports Network. One thing I heard in the aftermath of the Super Bowl from the Kansas City Chiefs that I think is a big time problem. We'll get to that on the other side. Update time first. Here is Ack.
Infinity Sports Network. Sports Flash.
You remember championship parades? The Eagles had one today. They were honored for the second time after dethroning the Chiefs, but the first for Saquon Barkley, who is incredibly grateful.
I want to say thank you so much for the love and support that you guys showed to me and my family, especially being newcomers here. I want to thank Mr. Lurie. I want to thank Howie, the whole Eagles organization, my teammates. I want to thank you guys especially for us being world champs.
Millions line the streets of Philadelphia, and Eagles GM Howie Roseman, who is the architect of these two champions, took a beer can to the head and had a cut, but made it through okay. The Dolphins are releasing former Pro Bowl running back Raheem Mostert, as well as Durham Smythe and Kendall Fuller. There is no action in the NBA tonight. All-Star Weekend tips off with the celebrity game, followed by the Rising Stars Challenge. Shaquille O'Neal reportedly remaining with Turner Sports, getting an extension worth $15 million a year. The threat of bad weather has moved the start of the Daytona 500 up by an hour to 1:30 Eastern Time on Sunday. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Hey, like us on Facebook. Our handle is INF Sportsnet. That's INF Sportsnet for our Facebook page. This is the Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick. We're the Backstreet Boys, and you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
All right, it is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. I'll get to the Ask the Pros question of the day in just a second. So I told you yesterday about this issue that I had with the airlines. About an hour and a half of my morning today was spent rectifying this issue. And over the dollar amount, I was very close to just hanging up the phone and just saying it wasn't even worth it. So in January, I booked a flight through my credit card company on my rewards, just to rehash the story, and I'll give you the final outcome, to end up getting a flight to Colorado. And it was more expensive than normal, so I said, I'll just use my points. I got them. So then 3 or 4 days later, whatever it was, I get a notification that the flight has changed. And when I went to see when the flight changed, it wasn't conducive to my travel schedule. So then I went on my United app, and I ended up switching the flight back to a better time. And then I got originally $44 back, I think it was. So I got 2 emails. One was a $55 credit, and the other said I was going to get a refund to $44. I don't know why there was a discrepancy on it, but whatever. So the other day I had to book another flight, and I went to go use that credit, and it said the credit was expired. And then I called up United. They said that's an outdated credit. They didn't even tell me you got a refund, but they said you have to call back your credit card company because you booked it through them, even though you rescheduled the flight with us after their change and their error. So I called back my credit card company yesterday, Stu. And my credit card company, late last night, they tell me that they spoke to United and that United said, I have to actually call back United because it was their error and they will give me the credit. So then today I was on the phone for 60 minutes with United. And I even had to talk to a supervisor at one point because they told me they had no clue what that credit was about. They can't even find it in their system, even though they re-emailed it to me yesterday. And then they said you should have been refunded $44, and you were refunded $44. I had no record of the $44 refunded. And then I guess they told me where they refunded it was to a card that I don't even have. They gave me a number. I'm looking at all my cards. I'm like, there's no number there. So the lady basically told me there's nothing she could do for me. And I have to call back my credit card company. So I call back my credit card company, and I'm nice, but I'm losing patience here. Because now this is almost like 2.5 days of this nonsense. So I said to the person at the credit card company, I'm not hanging up the phone until we get an answer here. So that person for the credit card company then called United, and they were going back and forth, and they're like, we could call you back. I'm like, no. Put me on hold. Because even though the guy sounded like a nice guy, you're going to say you call me back. You may call me back during the show, then I don't pick up, then I never hear from you again. So he eventually told me they are sending us the refund, right? Because they got to send it to the credit card company, and then they will send it back to me, and it will come back in points. Those phone calls, how many people mess things up, sending me things that I'm not. At one point, I'm like, it's over $44. But it's like the purpose of it, the premise of it. I almost lost my mind today. At one point, I was just ready to just hang up the phone and be like, all right, good riddance with this. So that ended up being the final outcome. I got the refund. But man, the hoops that they make you jump through. And I'm a 6'4" guy, so it ain't easy for me to jump through hoops. It's ridiculous. It's time to answer Ask the Pros question of the day, brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. You know what? We haven't heard from this person in a while. Hi, Zach. It's Bella B in Calgary. Would you rather be too hot or too cold? Thanks. Bella B in Calgary. You can submit a question by tweeting at INFSports or at Zach Gelb, ZACHGELB, using the hashtag AskThePros. Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. I think I'd rather be too hot. Because if I'm too hot, I go get ice cream, right? Or if it's too hot, I go to the beach. Or if it's too hot, I could go in the pool. Being cold is like when I was in Atlanta for the national championship game, I've never had frostbite, but I thought I was getting frostbite. And when you're just frigid and you could like barely move, you barely walk, and right behind your ears just get freezing and your hands get freezing. I don't know about you, Stu. I'd rather be too hot compared to too cold.
100%. I'd rather wipe off sweat and get some ice cream rather than like my morning this morning, walking just 10 minutes and not being able to feel my face. It's just like a terrible, like it's brutal. Hate it.
Especially when like your skin gets like all like, what is it? Chappy, I think it's called. And just the worst. Anyway, I saw something. Did you see this, by the way, Stu? Henry McKenna?
No.
He's a reporter for Fox Sports. This is from him. Before the game, a Chiefs coach told me that media members had been asking him if going to the Super Bowl ever gets old, and he bluntly told me it does. There was legit Super Bowl fatigue from this Chiefs team. It was completely clear in the first half when things escalated quickly. Huh? Let me tell you something. As someone that was a part of a dynasty, it never got old. Never. You won, then you won some more, and it got better and better and better and better. Whoever that coach is on the Chiefs, if that's a true coach, a true quote, and that wasn't taken out of context, and that was actually said, it wasn't said like tongue-in-cheek and jest, if they said, yeah, getting to the Super Bowl feels old, Andy Reid, you got to find out who that coach is. I don't care what he's done for you. You got to fire his ass. You're fired. That's what I would do. That's lame. Stu, you ever get old going to the Super Bowl? Come on. What are we doing? Have a great weekend. I'll be on the Fan, WFAN in New York on Sunday if you want to listen to the free Odyssey app from 3 to 6:45 p.m. Eastern. If not, we'll talk to you Monday, everybody, from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Have a great weekend. We out. Bye-bye. Peace.